Good morning. That grandbaby get more? Way to drop it.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for everybody that bared the possible inclement weather that may be coming later to come out and be at the meeting today. And for those of you that weren't able to attend but that are watching online, we welcome you as well. We're going to go ahead and start today, Commissioner Committee meeting, April the 8th. If you will, join me as we stand for a word of prayer, and then we're going to ask Commissioner Cole to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Father, thank you so much for the opportunity to gather here today, God. We pray that you'll bestow wisdom on us, Lord. We pray that you'll help us to be wise when we make these decisions, Lord, that will impact not only the folks that live in our community today, God, but also future generations. We pray that you'll build a hedge of protection around all the families of those represented here today, God, and we'll give you the glory and the honor for it. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. All right, informational only. Thursday, this Thursday the 11th, we are going to have a presentation from the Florida Association of Counties Trust, and that'll be here at the meeting. Now we are going to go ahead and open it up to public forum. If we have any members of the public here to speak today on an issue that is not on the agenda, we don't want to take time away from one that we could address later. But if we have anyone here today to speak on any items that they would like to address with the board that is not on the agenda, now would be the time to do so.
Did you approve the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I have an agenda item I'd like to speak on, but I've got some meetings later. May I address the board now?
What item is it?
It's agenda item number 5. The award of Navarre Beach Pier renovation.
I tell you, if you'll give me just a minute, you got a few minutes?
Absolutely.
This may be a pretty short public forum.
Okay. Very
Thank
cool.
you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if we can go ahead and approve the agenda before proceeding with the public forum.
All right. Do any of my fellow commissioners and members of staff have anything that they would need to add or change on the agenda?
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cole.
Mr. Chairman, just an information item. Since he's an Army brat and his mother and dad are both Santa Rosa County citizens, about 5 o'clock Wednesday morning, Sheila and my daughter and son-in-law had a new baby boy. That makes an even dozen for our family, which is hard to believe. But I think even though he was born in Georgia, I think he's a Santa Rosa County citizen by birth because of where his two parents are. So, and they'll be packing up here pretty soon, leaving Atlanta on orders to Kansas City, Fort Leavenworth. So he's already going to get to travel as an Army brat. So
Great. Commissioner Salter.
No changes.
Commissioner Lynchard.
No changes. Commissioner Cole,
No
congratulations.
No changes.
No changes.
We're good. Gentlemen, I would like to, if we could,
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Lynchard.
just point of indulgence at the outset. I wanted to point out, there was an event down in Navarre on Saturday for Deputy Nick Hubbard, I forget the Pirates of Navarre, I forget what their official name is. Pirates of the Panhandle put the event on. They had a great turnout, a lot of community support. I think they raised over $4,000 for Deputy Hubbard, who is going through some cancer treatments. So thank you to the group for putting that on. They do a lot of good for our community and have raised over $100,000 that has gone right back into our local community over the last 10 years. So kudos to them.
Thank you, Commissioner Lynchard. The only change I would guess in light of the gentleman's request is we may take up or at least have comments on engineer's report item number 5 before that so that the gentleman can speak. And I would just ask that under the administrative committee, we move item number 3 down to behind item number 7, just so I think we could dispose of quite a few of these pretty quickly before we get to item number 3, which deals with the Discovery Center and MYIP. I'm sure it'll be a lengthy discussion, so we'll just move that to the bottom of the admin committee to try to get some of these folks out of here. Hearing no other adjustments, we'll go ahead and approve today's agenda. Again, do we have anyone here to speak on an issue that is not on the agenda? All right. Sir, if you want to come up, I'm not sure what your schedule allots for, but it could be a while before we get to that. If you wanted to
Yeah,
go ahead.
this won't take but
Just state your name and address for the record.
My name is Peter Gaddy. I'm the owner of Gulf Marine Construction, 1232 North Pace Boulevard, Pensacola. And we were the low bidder on the Navarre Beach Pier project. We are addressing agenda item number 5, the discussion of awarding Navarre Pier renovations to R.J. Gorman. We were the low bidder on the project, as I stated previously. The board received 3 high bids due to a poorly written specification, no released proposed budget, unreasonable timeline due to custom order special order material, and a warranty clause which allowed for the county to retain 25% of the entire bid amount in the event that the EOR was not pleased with the warranty documents submitted at the end of the project. We simply proposed that we negotiate these terms prior to contracting with the county and having all the warranty documents approved prior to contracting. And we also proposed that the 90-day timeline be strictly related to the portions of the pier, the concession area, as well as the restaurant, the actual areas that can actually sustain liquidated damages. The fact that the other bids were so high indicates that other bidders did not intend to furnish or finish within the allotted amount of time and inflated those prices to compensate for those liquidated damages. After reviewing the bids, we realized that the recommended award today failed to submit evidence of all appropriate required licenses, business tax receipts, required insurance, or a letter of insurability, and there's actually not a bid bond attached in the documents with your agenda packet as well. A quick internet search revealed that the likely reason they did not submit licensure is because it does not exist. They don't have a business tax receipt nor a Santa Rosa County contractor's license. Search on DBPR showed that they have an application for a general contractor's license in process with the state. However, it is not active. The facts are these. A poorly written specification led to erroneous bids. The recommended award gives a job to an out-of-town contractor who's not properly licensed, did not provide the proper credentials, and as a result, this is going to cost the taxpayers of Santa Rosa County an additional $200,000. At this point, really the only option is to reject all bids and rebid the project in order to be a good steward of the taxpayer dollars. In light of this information, if this is awarded to R.J. Gorman, we intend to file a formal bid protest under, as allowed by state statute. And for me, this is not a, I'm not crying over spilled milk that y'all have decided to award this to another contractor. This is a symptom of an underlying issue within Santa Rosa County. Y'all are growing at an alarming rate, and it's awesome, but we have got to have a level playing field for contractors. And more importantly, stuff as simple as licensure, that's got to be researched before a recommended award is made. So that's all I have for y'all this morning, and I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me, and I'm anxious to see how y'all will address this.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you very much.
Thank you. All right. Do we have anybody else here for public forum? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public forum and move on. We have 2 proclamations today, one for the National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week And Commissioner Peach will be reading that one as well, and I believe we have a couple people here to receive it. And then after that, we'll have Commissioner Lynchard providing the Fair Housing Week proclamation. Commissioner Peach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is Scott and Jana here? Good morning. Good to see a couple of our fine 911 dispatchers. Appreciate you being here.
Good morning.
Okay. County of Santa Rosa Proclamation. Whereas professional telecommunicators are not visible as the men and women who arrive at the scene of emergencies, but provide a vital link to public safety services as part of the first responder team. Each telecommunicator has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. And whereas telecommunicators are critical to our county's emergency response and homeland security services, dispatching law enforcement, ambulances, firefighters, and other emergency responders 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas the critical functions performed by professional telecommunicators also include those related to forestry and conservation operations, highway safety and maintenance activities, and many operations performed by federal, state, and local government agencies. And whereas telecommunicators work to improve the emergency response capabilities of these communication systems through their leadership and participation in training programs, exercises, and other activities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Santa Rosa County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim the week of April 14th through the 20th, 2019 as National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in Santa Rosa County in honor and recognition of our telecommunicators and the vital contributions they make to the safety and well-being of our citizens. Passed and adopted by the Board of County Commissioners on this 8th day of April 2019, signed by the chairman. I just personally want to thank you. I've seen your operation and talked with y'all, and we really appreciate everything you do for the safety of our community.
And we thank you, and let me just take a moment to thank the men and women that answer the call for help and continue to do the duties that they have been assigned with a lot of compassion and professionalism. Also like to thank the county administration and the Board of County Commissioners for your continued support. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Why don't you come up, we'll get a picture up here with you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Commissioner Lynchard, who will be reading the Fair Housing Week proclamation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we have anyone here who's going to accept the fair housing? Come on up. Good morning. County of Santa Rosa Proclamation. Whereas the month of April has been designated as Fair Housing Month by the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development's Office of Fair Housing and Equal Opportunity. And whereas the Fair Housing Act, enacted on April 11, 1968, represented the final piece of legislation generated by the Civil Rights Movement. And whereas the Fair Housing Act made many of the discriminatory housing practices illegal. And whereas the Fair Housing Act extends a further guarantee that all Americans, regardless of race, gender, color, nationality, religion, family status, or disability, receive equitable treatment in their pursuit of housing choices. And whereas Santa Rosa County is committed to ending housing discrimination, now therefore the Board of County Commissioners of Santa Rosa County does hereby proclaim the week of April 15th, 2019 as Fair Housing Week in Santa Rosa County and encourages all citizens to better understand their rights and to take advantage of the information and resources that are available in the county's Housing Program Office located at 6051 Old Baghdad Highway, Suite 201 in Milton. Signed by Sam Parker, Chairman of the Board of County Commissioners. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Erin Malbeck, Center as a County Housing Program Coordinator. In this month, 1968, Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Fair Housing Act, which was a recommitment to the goal which inspired the nation in the aftermath of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. The Fair Housing Act has two goals: to end housing discrimination and promote diverse, inclusive communities. The second goal is referred to as affirmatively furthering fair housing. It embodies our strong-held American values and fair access and equal opportunity. Housing staff, along with the Department of Housing and Urban Development, would like to recognize this month as Fair Housing Month and would encourage any resident in our community who feels they have been discriminated against based on race, color, religion, or national origin to contact our office so we can get their voice heard.
Erin, thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
If you would, please come on up and we'll present the proclamation.
All right, good things happening. Okay, that takes care of the proclamations. Again, thank you so much for those of you that came today for that. Next, we're going to move forward with our presentations. First, we will have the presentation by the Marine Edge Discovery Center. Good morning.
Thank you, Charlene Morrow, 2786 Grand Bay Court, Navarre. Let me make sure this is working here. Good morning. Thank you for your time. We appreciate the county's support and the hard work of county staff for helping us get to this exciting point of the Gulf Coast Discovery Center. I'm here today representing the nonprofit Northwest Florida Marine Edge. Thank you to our board members, representatives from UWF and the Institute of Human and Machine Cognition, former students, current students, parents, and community members. As you can see, we have some viable partnerships supporting the Gulf Coast Discovery Center. We look forward to the future and a continued partnership with Santa Rosa County while protecting the county's interests at all times. I'd like to begin the presentation with a brief history of Northwest Florida Marine Edge and the Gulf Coast Discovery Center. Bam. There we go. In 2007, we came up with the vision of the Navarre Beach Marine Science Station. In 1997, I started the Marine Science program at Navarre High School. It's safe to say that I have taught most students in Navarre area, but before I was an educator, I was in animal care. I also did informal education. After Ivan, there was two vacant ranger stations, and at the time, we approached the county commissioners. Gordon Gooden was our commissioner at the time, and then also the school district to ask for this ranger station if we could convert it into a learning center. It wasn't an easy task. Mr. Rosdick at the time said, "Charlene, you can do this, but you can't. I can't give you any money." So as early as 2007, 2 years before the station opened, we started writing grants. So everything in the station, from the microscopes to the tables to any equipment, is all grant funded thanks to the Gulf of Mexico Alliance, Gulf of Mexico Foundation. In order to apply for Restore and NERDA funds, we had to form a nonprofit. So in 2013, Northwest Florida Marine Edge was formed, and it was a ton of work, but we have been quite successful when it comes to grants, including SR 17, the NERDA project, where we have a ribbon cutting tomorrow. I am super excited that that is happening. Thank you for your support on that, and we look forward to celebrating tomorrow. In 2013, as you can see, that's my son building the future Gulf Coast Discovery Center out of Legos. He was 3 years old, and now today he turns 9. So it has been a lengthy process. I've learned how to be really patient to make things like this happen. And then finally, in 2018, we started working with Caldwell to make the Gulf Coast Discovery Center a reality. Let's see here. Nope. And, oh, dang it. So even though, I'm going to go back here. Even though the Navarre Beach Marine Science Station started in 2009, the Gulf Coast Discovery Center has been 20 years in the making. Since I started in environmental education, I've made contacts at different facilities, Florida Aquarium, New Orleans Aquarium, Monterey Bay, and what interests me is how the visitors to those facilities interact with the public, how they make an impact. And so over the years, getting the best of the best as far as exhibits and programming and bringing it all together for the Gulf Coast Discovery Center. And I'm super excited that we have the best of the best exhibit designers and writers to create exhibits for the Discovery Center. For example, one of the best exhibits at Monterey Bay Aquarium is on sustainable seafood, and we have that exhibit designer and writer on our team for the Gulf Coast Discovery Center. I asked him at our charrette, this is a smaller project than all these. Why would you want to work with us in the Discovery Center? And they said, you have a really unique program, and we appreciate what you do involving the community and your students. So let's see. Okay, mission of the Gulf Coast Discovery Center is to provide hands-on, feet-wet experiences for people that visit the center. And then overall mission is to educate, empower, and help visitors, community members, and students to hashtag be the solution. And here are some bullet points as to why Northwest Florida Marine Edge would be a great project in Gulf Coast Discovery Center. Based on our history, we're self-sustaining. Mr. Rosdick, when the science station did start, he made it very clear that within 3 years, we should be standing on our own without any grant money or, so we are self-sustaining, and we see the Gulf Coast Discovery Center being self-sustaining as well. Double clicks and go. Another reason for the Gulf Coast Discovery Center is that our school groups at the science station, within 3 days of pre-planning for teachers, we get 52 days of school groups booked from grades K through 5. This year we're focusing our curriculum on 1st, 3rd, and 5th grade. And I would like to add that with those school groups, 50% of the schools that visit the science station are from the north end of Santa Rosa County. We have written it into school improvement plans at Title I schools, so if those schools would like to come to the science station, it is funded through federal funds. Okay. Successful grant applications. To date, Northwest Florida Marine Edge has received over nearly $1 million in grants, award-winning, and I'll touch on that. And then mostly with outreach, we are able to reach 100,000 people a year. So we do several different festivals, events, visit schools. We work with Autism Pensacola to visit their summer camp. Why the need for Gulf Coast Discovery Center? We're maxed out on space. I have specimens in the showers. We have done a significant amount of work, and we see a incredible amount of people at the Gulf Coast Discovery Center, at the Navarre Beach Marine Science Station. If you could take those programs and multiply it by 4 or 5, I am confident that we would have that kind of participation. Visitors drop in daily. We are Santa Rosa County Classroom, and there's a need for a larger facility in the area to provide opportunities for visitors and then community members and reach more students. Community requests. Okay. So here's some examples of the programs that we currently offer and will continue to offer at the Gulf Coast Discovery Center. As you can see, we see lots of school groups and working with organizations, very big, like Autism Odyssey is this Saturday, and I invite all of you to come and see our signature event that was designed just for families with special needs children and adults. We go paddle boarding, the kids kayak fishing, and then local organizations that work with special needs students provide sensory activities, and it's really a great way to see that what we're all about. We also host the Guy Harvey fishing camps, and we were selected to do that. Very popular summer program. Here are a list of grants that we have been awarded, and one of the questions that come up is, why the nonprofit? In order to apply for grants like the Impact 100 and Restore, we realized that we had a better chance at receiving those grants as a nonprofit rather than with the school district. One of those grants is the Impact 100, and it was for the Discovery Depot. Since we book our school groups at the station, we wanted a way to get out into the community and give them experiences and educate them about issues like sustainable seafood, lionfish, invasion, seagrasses. There are some touch tanks in the traveling trailer, and we bring this to festivals and schools to reach a broader audience. Bam. Program awards. Our program is unique. 3 days a week, I'm the teacher at the science station. I work with Pensacola State College as an adjunct, and I teach marine biology, OCB 2000, and then in the springtime, I teach oceanography. Students that attend classes, which aren't just Navarre High School students, we also have Gulf Breeze students, PACE students, and Milton students that drive to the station to receive college credit. I teach them 3 days a week, and then 2 days a week, they teach younger students. Our students are required to do 20 hours of community service outside of the class, and they are what makes our program special, and that is why we have received these recognitions. Some of the highlights of our recognition was the Presidential Award. We got to go to the White House. Most recently, we've been featured with PBS's Shape of Life series, and also we have received not only local, state, and national awards. We were also, in 2018, we received the International SeaWorld Excellence Award in Environmental Education. We have received a lot of interest in the Gulf Coast Discovery Center, Guy Harvey Foundation. We have project partners at different facilities. And then also, as you know, this guy, I grew up reading Cousteau, the encyclopedia set, learning all about marine science. And Fabien Cousteau of the Fabien Cousteau Ocean Learning Center heard about the Discovery Center and what we do, and he flew down with one of his board members, Justin Muir, with City Aquariums in New York, to see what we're all about. And our nonprofits have similar missions And I really feel like that was a great partnership, potential partnership that can happen to have the Gulf Coast Discovery Center reach far beyond Santa Rosa County. And then, here we go.
Bonjour,
A message from
Hello,
Fabian
everyone.
Cousteau.
Thank you, Charlene. Thank you all for allowing me a moment of your time. My name is Fabien Cousteau, and I'm sorry I can't be there with you today. But as third-generation ocean explorer, documentary filmmaker, voice for the ocean, and as the founder of the Fabian Cousteau Ocean Learning Center, it is a thrill to know that the Gulf Coast Discovery Center's mission aligns with our very own, to educate and empower local communities and visitors, and to give a sense of aquatic restoration to our life support system, our ocean. Given the natural beauty of Navarre Beach as an ecotourism destination, the Gulf Coast Discovery Center will be a centerpiece for marine science education. As the Gulf Coast Discovery Center moves forward, a capital campaign is underway, and I look forward to the opportunity to work with Northwest Florida Marine Edge to make the Discovery Center a huge success. I'll leave you with a quote that my grandfather told me when I was young. People protect what they love what they understand, and they understand what they are taught. Thank you, Santa Rosa County Board of County Commissioners, for recognizing the value in such an amazing facility. À bientôt. Au revoir. Thank you all very much. Back to you, Charlene.
All right. And in conclusion, we look forward to working with Erica, the county staff, and the Board of County Commissioners to protect the county's interest while moving forward with the Gulf Coast Discovery Center. As you'll see, this is a game changer of a project that will provide endless opportunities for students, locals, and visitors to the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. Next, I believe we have some members from Caldwell Architects.
Thank you and good morning. We can wait for our... Well, first I'd like to say congratulations. You've got people, visitors, tourists, and citizens of Santa Rosa County banging on the doors of what is effectively a school, wanting to learn more about marine education, how to protect their environment, and how to understand better this special ecosystem that we have around us that we all call our home. So I want to say congratulations on you investing in this project. I can't tell you how exciting it is to be your partner in this, and how exciting it was, because I also had that set of Jacques Cousteau books as a kid, to be invited to a lunch and have his grandson be so enthusiastic about partnering with Santa Rosa County on this project. So we're looking very much forward into working on this with you. And this project, as I mentioned, is a very unique project to Santa Rosa County. It's unlike any other building project that you've undertaken, and what Charlene didn't mention, that's really a fundamental component of what this first effort was, and hopefully you all have a copy of what we turned in last week, the programming and concept development document, which was the first step in this process. And what makes this project very different is that we're taking what is effectively a school and a successful school program, a program that's mostly closed to visitors and they can engage in. There are a few programs that they've done for outreach and community involvement, and turning it into a community organization, a landmark Santa Rosa County owned property that they can invest in over the next generations for our kids and for our grandkids. So I can't reiterate how important and significant that is, taking this school and transforming it into a community project. And that was part of the primary goal of this first effort, is to understand how to do that. And for lack of a better word, I'd call this essentially the recipe for the building. The first step was to understand, what do we have to put in this building, what are the requirements for it, how do exhibits interact with the visitors, and how can the building support the exhibits. A second component of it is, in addition for being an important tourist destination, and a building that will be on the tour of Santa Rosa County when you bring in investors, when you bring in important community, people from outside the community, that this is where you take them from the airport. It's one of the assets that you show them. You show them downtown Milton. You show them this facility, other facilities throughout Santa Rosa County, the beaches to woodland sites, which I enjoyed so much with my kids when they were younger. That you show them all the assets that Santa Rosa County has to offer. And unique to most of those, this is a building and facility that is owned by Santa Rosa County, so it's very, very special indeed. But in addition to it being a tourist facility, it's also a Santa Rosa County facility in itself, a community third place. And what is a third place? Well, the first and second places that we all have is our home and our work. A third place is those other places that we like to go to spend our time. For some people, it's a Starbucks. For others, it's a library. These other spaces that we want people to be at. So we want community members throughout Santa Rosa County to think, where can I go to meet my neighborhood center or my neighborhood community board members? Where can I go and take my kids on a Wednesday morning in the summer to educate them about this great place that we live? We want those answers to be, well, you can do that at the Gulf Coast Discovery Center. And then, like Charlene said, part of the uniqueness of their program is they want to actively participate with these students, with these children, with these adults, for them to become citizen scientists. You protect what you know, and we want to help broaden that message of understanding this environment and how precious it is and important it is to protect it. And then lastly, to recruit and retain. You're seeing the results of some of that behind me in the shirts, that we want to give our kids the best possible education we can in Santa Rosa County. We want them to go off and explore the world, and we want them to come back and raise their kids in Santa Rosa County. So we want to recruit and retain those families to continue this fantastic trend of smart growth for Santa Rosa County. So this is why we're doing this. So this is a summary of essentially what's in the document. I'll say the recipe of the building. As Charlene mentioned, we were able and fortunate enough to team with a world-class exhibit design organization, that's Portico, out of Seattle, Washington. I think it's important for you to understand the reason that group is interested in a project like this. I spoke with the principal on the phone about this, and she immediately understood the importance of this particular ecosystem here on the Gulf Coast of Florida, and Charlene's unique way of delivering that educational message to their children. This is not like, to compare it to the courthouse that you're doing, a large 400-person firm that'll be working on this project, as a satellite project. This is a firm that's actually about the size of our firm, 20, 25 people that do these very focused projects throughout the world. So they're very, very interested in this project, and we're so excited for them to be members of our team. So unlike most buildings that we design, where we design the site and the exterior of the building, and then we occupy it with internal spaces, and then later in the project we outfit it with furniture and furnishings and equipment that go in it, this project actually has to work backwards, and that's why we felt it was so critical to integrate the exhibit design at the beginning. In other words, we had to create a mission and vision for this facility, which is different from the Navarre Beach Marine Science Station, because again, it was a school. It didn't have the same mission that the Gulf Coast Discovery Center will have. We then had to create exhibits that support that mission and frame that visitor experience. That's how it will be successful. It's not just walking into like a pet store and there's aquariums out there and you interact with them that way. And then we had to design a building around those exhibits. So it's a little bit backwards from the way most buildings are designed. So it was important to engage those people early, and I'll walk through some of the steps that we did to reach that point, beginning with the exhibit charrette. So what is a charrette? This is really an intense, in this case, 2-day process where we had all the stakeholders in the same room. It was Charlene, it was us, it was the exhibit designers, it was board members of the organization, to get all of our ideas out on the table about how to translate this school facility into a community educational and ecotourism facility. And this involved 2 very long days of getting ideas out on the table, seeing which ideas rose to the top, determining what species made sense to showcase, what was the story or message that we were delivering, so that when people move through the facility, they actually get what the point is to for them to understand more about their environment and the protection of it, and to go out there and change their daily habits to become better environmental citizens of Santa Rosa County. And out of this, we were able to get a lot of data to translate that into the requirements for the building. And all these pages are really from this document here. We began to list the different exhibits that we're going to, or habitats that we were going to showcase, barrier islands, the surf zone, pelagic, open water, basically a transit of our space from the inland waters to the deep sea. What species would go in those exhibits, how many of them, what are the life support systems required to support those? Because unlike other buildings, the exhibit design component for this facility is a huge part of the building design and has to be integrated at the beginning. And then how do all these begin to lay out in a way that makes sense so that when people visit the facility and move through the facility, that message of marine education is given to them in the unique interactive way that Charlene delivers this message through a docent-heavy and a volunteer-heavy experience where visitors aren't passively moving through it, but they're actively engaged in these exhibits, so this is changing the way that they live their lives. And the results of that were some concept renderings that you can see here. The one on top is a moon jelly exhibit that shows the reproductive cycle of them and the importance of that and how they move into and out of our ecosystem and how water quality affects that whole process. Below is the demonstration of the intelligence of octopus to be able to adaptively react to complex problem solving in very short amount of time. Interacting with a reef exhibit with a diver in a tank and understanding the importance of how the multiple layers of the reef habitat and how they affect the overall quality of our oceans, or down below where children can use remote operated vehicles, which they make some at the Discovery Center currently, to more further investigate the life in some of these habitats. And then after that, we had to begin the architectural process of understanding the requirements to support these kinds of spaces. Without going into detail of the list here, the impact of exhibit design on a building is roughly 50% of the space. So about 50% of the space of the building that you're seeing is for exhibit design and life support, and the other 50% is for offices and other administrative areas that we need to consider. This is represents the spatial requirements for those individual spaces adding up together into what is, go to the next slide here, page 2, an approximately 8,600 square foot facility that has an additional 2,400 square feet of program areas that's not conditioned. These would be outdoor areas that are used for outdoor education, gathering, et cetera. And then that red line that you see there at the bottom of the page, we also discuss items that we don't think are going to be within the budget, but that we want to discuss and understand how to fold into if additional funds come our way. And this was all built around the framework of available funding for the project, which we'll be talking more in depth about today. The second component of what we were asked to do, we focused most of our effort on the building itself and understanding the requirements of it, since it is an extremely complex building to be able to support marine life on a barrier island that's subject to hurricanes from time to time. So it was really critical that we were able to understand that with greater level of detail in this first step. The second component was to understand how that folds into the overall master plan. For most of you who were here a year ago when we presented this master plan, which we've validated in the 12 months since we first created it, like most projects, we can't have everything all at once. We have to incrementally bite off pieces as we can. And I told Charlene that this is going to be that kick-butt new restaurant that's got a line out the door that people can't wait to get into, and it's going to grow as we build it and exposure comes to it. And that's how organic growth occurs. So at a phase one, here's the full build out with outdoor amenities between the building and the coastline, an extensive dune system dune walkover system with outdoor classrooms and other exhibit spaces. At a phase one, we're hoping to get the following on the next slide. Here we are, which is the Gulf Coast Discovery Center building itself and parking areas to support it. Now what we're doing with this is we're really focusing our effort on what's within the four walls of the building itself. As I told Charlene, as I told Erica, if funds are going to be limited in this first phase, and this project represents something on the small end of similar facilities around the country in terms of both size and budget, then we need to focus as much of our dollars and cents within those four walls itself. Because if this project is built and is successful, it's much easier to add on outdoor components, outdoor amenities, additional parking, covered areas, playgrounds, et cetera, as funds become available or as donations come in. It's much easier to do that than to all of a sudden add on another 1,000 square feet of the building. So we want to focus our effort on the building itself in this initial phase. And we see that process taking approximately 9 months from the notice to proceed. With a project like this and an environment, a construction environment that we're entering now, we're starting to see funding come into counties east of us, insurance money available for projects that are moving forward. That's going to impact our ability to our labor force to support this project in its construction phase, 9 or 12 months out. When it begins, and it's critical that we price this project early and often, and with detailed cost estimating. This isn't something that we want to get to 9 months down the road, and gosh, we're $3 million over budget. What do we do? This is something we want to engage. In fact, that's our recommended first step, is to do a detailed cost estimate of the exhibit design components, since they do make up a significant portion of the project. And at each point throughout the design phase, that we understand how not so much value engineering, that will be a component, but also budget protection, so that when we move forward in this project, that we have options based on what prices are coming in 9 months and what we can afford to do in this first phase. So with that, I'll leave it open to questions, or that between Erica, Charlene, and I, that we can respond to.
Thank you. Do any members of the board have any questions at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I will have some. Do we want to hold those until the discussion on the regular agenda?
I plan to.
Okay,
personally.
that'd be fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the Economic Development Committee, I will turn it over to Commissioner Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 items today, and I'm going to turn it over to Shannon and let him discuss the first project.
Good morning. We could have the presentation. Good morning. I would like to bring forth a proposal that has arisen on some soon-to-be vacant property located in Milton. Over the past year, we have completed a strategic plan with the help of Gardner Economics. And through that strategic plan, it provided us a framework of moving forward in economic development. One of those recommendations was focus more on small business development and how to help small business. So one of the first things that we've done over the past year is implemented the Strive Grant, a facade grant program that we can award to small businesses to help them improve their looks within the county. Based upon the recommendation, we got with FSU to complete a business incubator study, which ultimately recommended having a business incubator in Santa Rosa County. This is basically what a business incubator is and the approach. It's basically helping companies grow. It's helping them thrive, helping them succeed, where they can get help from the Small Business Development Center, where they can get help from patent attorneys or human resources, where they can network together. Basically, the proposal is more than just the business incubator itself. What has came forward to us is the property that is currently owned by United Way Santa Rosa County, and we've all seen the situation they're under now, but the 4 properties that they currently own is the 10,600 square foot warehouse, which is the former Whiting Furniture Facility, 2,400 square foot warehouse, which is located behind the office space, 5.96 additional acres, and a 10,440 square foot office space, which is all adjacent to this facility. This is just basically the location. The properties, like I said, is located just adjacent to us. The overall purpose of each of the facilities, as you can see here, would be to turn the Whitingfield Furniture Building into a business incubator. The warehouse could be used as county storage. The 4.5 acres for wetlands mitigation. United Way offices move economic development offices to that space, and then our vacated space could be used for additional county office space. Step one would be renovating the former Whiting Furniture Building. This is where we can provide a positive atmosphere for companies looking to grow. We are working with, we work a lot with Escambia County, Florida West, and they currently occupy the SunTrust building, or I will say the Pensacola State College building that is located on Garden Street. And I was talking to Florida West last week. Out of their 3 floors, they are currently occupied at 70%. And the reason that number is low, they just renovated the bottom floor. So before renovation of the bottom floor, they were at basically 90 to 95% full. So with such the demand, they have, like I said, opened that bottom floor and expanded. And Scott was saying they have 3 to 4 tenants already in the bottom floor. This slide basically just shows a conceptual layout of the property, of what we would like to see, maybe open desk, where tenants can come in and just rent a desk for the day or rent a desk for the month. Private cubicles is cubicles you see in the TV show The Office, where people just have cubicles floating around, and then even building private offices. But the main purpose of the incubator is networking, is getting people out of their garage, getting people out of their homes, and letting them network and have a place to meet and talk. How do you deal with certain HR issues? How do you deal with a patent? How do you deal with certain issues that are coming up with the state? So this would be a networking place where people can come and talk. Here are some of the benefits of an incubator. I'd just like to also share that this is a place that we would like to keep our best and brightest in Santa Rosa County and provide quality jobs and keep this competitive with not just this county and the country, but also the state. I would also like to bring up one of the first tenants of the CoLab space in downtown Pensacola. He's become a great friend over the years, but Jason Leisure. Jason was the first tenant at the CoLab space in downtown Pensacola. So just like Jason, just to say a few words about his business and where he's currently located.
As Shannon mentioned, my name is Jason Leisure. I'm owner of the company, The Analyst Group. We were the first graduate of the CoLab in Pensacola. We're located at 5185 Elmira Street in Milton, so you benefited from the Pensacola CoLab. We have about 35 jobs or positions that we filled over there that we're operating in now. Currently renovating that building, trying to bring it up to our expectations, but continuing to hire as well with a pretty strong growth rate. The benefits we saw from the incubator are, of course, the networking, as Shannon mentioned. But I think as a small business, one of the challenges that we had was I'm too focused in my business to be focused on my business, and having resources to help me stay focused on, making sure we're fulfilling our business plan, meeting reviewing our budgets, making sure that we're falling in line with our growth expectations and things like that was very helpful. So having those resources made it to where I could focus more on my business and have resources help me focus on the business to continue its growth. Okay.
Just in case, the address that Jason gave is the old Exchange Hotel located in downtown Milton. So the warehouse space located adjacent to us is, like I mentioned, 2,400 square feet. Could be used for county storage retention. It's divided into 1,200 square foot units with a climate controlled area, which you see the picture second from the bottom. Also with the property they currently own, they sit on 5.96 acres. Approximately 4.5 of that is wetlands. So since we cannot build on it, It could be used for future wetlands mitigation if we decide to we need to build a park or road somewhere else. So, but since it is wetlands, we cannot build on it. The other component, as I mentioned, is moving the Economic Development Office to the current occupied office space of United Way. Oftentimes, we are hosting CEOs and site selectors, and we just want to make sure we're able to provide them a positive atmosphere when they're coming to visit. And good office space, showing the best foot possible when we have these clients in town. And it also allows us to better accommodate the Small Business Development Center and the Haas Center, and also create new partnerships with complementary agencies looking to help businesses. And then lastly, it would vacate our current office space of 3,600 square feet, which could be used for growing departments or other departments that needing to expand or relocate. In summary, we would like to explore the opportunity of appraisal, inspection, and just open to the discussion of the properties owned by United Way of Santa Rosa.
Thank you, Shannon. Any comments from the commission? Mr. Cole?
Thank you, Commissioner. Shannon and I talked about this, and I like the concept, but I've got quite a few questions I'd like to get answered. We've known for years that the probation office is very inadequate and causing problems for downtown Milton and not having proper facilities. So in this much square feet acquisition, I'd like there to be some consideration to get out of the probation office and vacate that property, perhaps even turn that property over to the city of Milton. That's just like for opening and discussion. Where do we go from here type question. You've got in 3,700 square feet currently, and you're going to move to 10,400. So that's a pretty, quite a substantial amount of difference in property for your office area. So.
Correct. What I didn't mention was in the office space was Covenant Hospice currently occupies half of that. So they occupy basically 5,700 to 5,800 square feet at that space. So we would only be moving up to 3,600 square feet to about 5,500 square feet.
So hospice would stay there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Has Haas Center done any type of survey that shows a necessity for an incubator in Santa Rosa County? Because, when you start comparing Escambia County to Santa Rosa County, we're still a long ways away in population, in downtown, and just growth in general. I know we're rapidly growing, but what's the sustainability of a incubator? So, and I don't expect an answer now. This is just some of the things that if we go down this road, I'm going to want answers on. What do we pay currently for the rental on our storage area that we would convert? Are we going to see a positive cash flow from that? Because I know right now we're renting the facility where we store archives, so that would be a positive move for me if we own a building and no longer are paying rent. So I'd like to know that. And also I want to know what United Way paid for the properties and then what we would be able to acquire them for. Because is this going to be a fire sale on their behalf to raise funds to cover some needs? Or is this going to be fair market value? I know once we go through the appraisal process, it more than likely sounds to me like fair market value, but is there a need for them to move this property quicker to where we can get a good price, maybe better than fair market value on it? So those are just the things that I'm going to want to see some answers for before I make a determination. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cole. Shannon, you want to respond to anything?
Back over the summer, we did have FSU complete the incubator study, and they did see as a need for an incubator in downtown Milton. They actually thought downtown Milton would be the best location for the incubator for the county, since it would be a central point from hitting both north and south, east and west. And one of the highest traffic counts that we have in the county is not too far away at the old Kmart Food World facility. So that's one of the highest traffic counts. So that's the reason why they thought this facility, not this facility, but this area would be a suitable location. The storage lease costs it's around $2,000 a month, if I remember correctly, is what we're leasing at. But that is at a 5,000 square foot office warehouse space. So this is basically half of what we're leasing now. So I'm not sure on how much of that 5,000 square feet we're using, but it would be 2,000 versus free, good savings. But like you said, like I mentioned, it's half the square footage. So
That would be important to me if we're getting out of that rental, and also, to me, it's very important that we look at something for probation, excuse me.
Yes.
Until we can, and I know my long-term plans would be to see probation and public defender move to the courthouse campus on Avalon, but that's going to be years down the road, after we get the courthouse built. So can something be done in the interim to help the city of Milton clean up the downtown? They're vigilant at, improving downtown, yet we have this probation problem, inadequate facilities for people to use, and it just causes quite a bit of confusion and quite messy downtown, really. So,
and I just spoke to Mr. Spencer, and I'll get back with him for more details.
okay. I like the concept. I got a long way to go before I could get on board with it.
Okay.
Commissioner Peach?
Thank you. Shannon, great job. I agree with Commissioner Cole. I love the concept. I'm a supporter of small business. I think we need to do everything we can to bring them around. I like your thinking of consolidation. I think if we get the big puzzle pieces out and we really look at, we're trying to sell the Whittle building. I've seen probation out there with their tables in the parking lot taking care of folks when I drive here in the morning. So if we could put that master puzzle piece together and go, hey, we can, not just buy more land, but consolidate and get that in, but help the small businesses, because I applaud the small business. Thank you for moving to Milton and doing that, but I think small business is the way we need to go, at least down in Navarre area. We're not going to see the big industrial parks or things like that down there. So I think small business, anything we can do to help small business get started and get them rolling to create that economic development is a good thing. So I'm excited for the project. I think if we work as a team with the whole county staff, we could probably reap some good benefits from this.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Lynchard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Shannon, thank you for bringing this to the board. This is an item of first impression. This is the first time this has been discussed up here. So I would certainly support granting you the latitude to pursue the appraisal and the inspection on the building. I think the concept of having an incubator in Santa Rosa County is a good one. We discussed it years ago during the first round of Restore when we were coming up with our initial multi-year implementation plan. And so I think it has merit. As Commissioner Cole and Commissioner Peach stated, we'd need to see a lot more in terms of business plan, operating expenses for the incubator. What are our commitments there? Who are the partners who are going to come on board and help this be successful? But as I understand it today, the only ask is to move forward with getting an appraisal and an inspection done of the properties.
Correct.
So I would support that.
Thank you, Commissioner Lynchard. Commissioner Parker?
Thank you. Shannon, I know we had a brief opportunity to speak last week. I know where I'm at the moment with the information I've been provided. I'm not really ready to support the proposal right now. Obviously, my heart, as these other commissioners have stated, is we're trying to help small businesses, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to, in my mind, go buy, the old Whiting Furniture Building on Highway 90. Based on the conversation that I had with you, as well as actually had a couple calls, surprisingly, about this over the weekend, I learned that there's at least multiple private entities that have engaged with conversations with United Way about possibly purchasing that building as well. And it was expressed to me that they didn't really like the idea of competition between private business and Santa Rosa County looking to purchase commercial property. Also, based on the fact of, I don't know that I would feel comfortable even expending funds for an appraisal at this time if I feel like before that, we should probably already have an idea of what United Way is looking to get out of it. If they're looking to pay off the loan they have, we know what that amount is. We also would need to know if we were looking at getting what we consider a good deal, is that lender applicable to some loan forgiveness, such as a short sale type theory. Otherwise, we expend funds for this commercial appraisal, but we already know that they're going to want at least that minimum amount of, I think, around $1.2, $1.3 million. As far as even the probation consolidation, I guess my thought on that is, we just purchased a complex on Avalon Boulevard that we're saying is going to be a county complex with plenty of room for future growth. And I feel like we all feel that probation, state attorney, public defender are probably better located around that campus where the judicial center was. And I just wouldn't want to throw money at a Band-Aid that then, again, one day we're going to have these assets right here on the main roadway and we don't have it. But lastly, even when we talk about storage, we're not sure that building's adequate enough to fully get us out of the other storage, I guess is what I'm understanding. But I believe the county has about 5 acres up by Public Works, and if what I remember from when Tony Gomillion was here, if what he told me was that was actually purchased for the future possibility, and I guess you guys would know, but for storage and other areas there. So I guess I'm just not a big fan of the project and for what I know about it, but I absolutely appreciate and applaud the innovative thinking of bringing it forward to us, and wholeheartedly support the concept of a business incubator. I remember when we had those students here working on their masters, and they shared with us that research from Florida State, and I think that's great. I just don't know that I could support this acquisition moving in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any other comments? Comments from the public? I support moving forward with an inspection and appraisal of the facilities and the acreage. Shannon, I think all the commissioners have a lot of additional questions, so I encourage you to set up meetings with each one of them individually and try to better lay it out. And what are the benefits? I like the idea potentially of bringing probation to we're in your office now if you vacate it. So I support, here again, moving forward with it, see what it looks like. And I would make that, I would recommend moving this to Thursday's agenda without objection.
Commissioner Salter, I would just request that we keep it on the regular agenda, please.
Keep it on the regular agenda, move it to Thursday's regular agenda without objection.
Hearing none, so moved.
Number 2.
Second item is the recommendation or ask to advertise 5 acres at the I-10 Industrial Park, the property that we own, property that was acquired a few years ago, but a veteran-owned company is looking to expand into Santa Rosa County. They're wanting to, like I mentioned, 5 acres. They are a medical device manufacturer, medical device distribution company that supplies to the VA hospital system. And he's estimating that in the first year, 24 employees, capital investment of around $3 million, and they pay well above the county average of $16.97. So would like to advertise 5 acres for them.
Any questions by the board?
I just thank you so much. I know we briefed us on this as well. Thank you. This is very exciting to finally have the prospect of getting a tenant in there, but no questions. Just want to applaud Shannon and Erica and all his staff for the work towards getting this done.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any comments from the public? Mr. Chairman, I would recommend moving this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Thank you, Shannon. And Jason, thank you for being here. Good luck. Thank you for bringing your business to downtown Milton, Florida. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will move on to the Administrative Committee. Item number 1 is a CDBG modification, and this is number 2 for the Legend Creek Sewer project. You have the information there in your backup. This would be extending the work plan period of performance and the end date through December the 8th, 2019. Are there any questions from any members of the public or any board members on this item? Hearing none, I would recommend we move that to Thursday's consent agenda. Item number 2, we have some 4 event requests. I think we do have at least a couple folks here on one of those, but we have the Greater Navarre Area Chamber of Commerce request to utilize Navarre Park for a military appreciation picnic scheduled for July 6th of this year. We also have the Benny Russell Elementary School request to utilize county right-of-way near the school for the Carissa Stewart Memorial Fun Run, and that'll be for May 18th of this year. We also have the Tinker Gardens request to utilize Benny Russell and Florida Town Parks for their 2019 outdoor play classes. And lastly, but absolutely not leastly, is the First Judicial Circuit Law Enforcement Association's request to utilize county right-of-way and East Milton Park for their annual end-of-watch ruck scheduled for May 16th to 18th of this year. I believe I saw some folks that are probably here to speak on that. Do we have any members from any of these event requests that wanted to come speak to the board? If not, I would be prepared to move all 4 of these items to Thursday's consent agenda for approval. Do that without objection. Hearing none, those are moved to Thursday's consent agenda, and thank you so much for those of you that are helping sponsor these great events. Next, we will go to the, which was previously item number 4, the Clear Creek, Whiting Field, and Escribano Point, Florida Forever projects. This is a discussion of approval of amendment number 6 to this agreement between the United States, the state of Florida, and Santa Rosa County, with authorization for the chairman to sign. And I believe this is a continuation of the great program that Santa Rosa County has formed with the Navy on being able to purchase these restrictive easements and be able to better protect the mission of Whiting Field. Is that correct, Roy?
That's correct. The Navy has funded another $4.4 million for acquisition, and this agreement deals with that and expands the authority to the entire county of Santa Rosa.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Roy, so much for your help on that. And Commissioner Salter, I know you've always been a torchbearer for this program, and we appreciate that. Hearing no other comment, I'd be prepared to move this to Thursday's consent agenda. Item number 5 is the 2018-2019 Federal Elections Activities Funds. This is a discussion of approval of a letter of certification to the Florida Division of Elections regarding local match and the amount of $2,693.48 for the Help America Vote Act grant, as recommended by Supervisor of Elections Tappy Villain. This is in order to match some funding that her office could get to help try to increase voter participation. I would recommend moving this to Thursday's consent agenda if there's no members of the public or other commissioners that have any comments on this. Hearing none, we'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda. Item number 6 is a settlement agreement for the Cohart flood claim. This is a discussion and review of settlement agreement for the Cohart flood claim. Are there any questions or comments from any members of the public or fellow commissioners on this item? Commissioner Cole?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to oppose this for several reasons. One, if you look at the backup, it's accusations that we didn't maintain our drainage properly. It's not been proven. In discussions I had earlier today with our Public Works Director, he assured me that those cross drains in the pond were working efficiently at that time. These folks bought this piece of property, I believe, around 2014 or 15. And if you look at the property appraiser's website, and I've asked Brother Drinker to provide me with some more clear pictures. I don't have them yet for the board, so I may ask this move to Thursday's regular agenda. But the folks have built another building, looks to me from the aerial like a two-car garage, and have also paved a large portion of the yard, therefore removing a lot of the permeable surface. The News Journal said on the day that they discussed in June, we had 12 inches in 12 hours. How in the world could we expect our Public Works Department to protect against acts of God? I could see if in a normal rainfall, these folks were having a problem, had called us before and said that the cross drain was clogged and wasn't working, please come out and do something, and we ignored that, but that's not the case. In fact, there's a private holding pond next door to this house that we don't know has been maintained or not. So, and basically, you know, in about 10th grade, I had a law class, and I nowhere claim to be the status of Roy or Commissioner Lynchard, but two things I remember from that law class in 10th grade is, one, when you're negotiating something and I make you an offer and you got a price and I make you that offer, you can go up or down on that price. That's one thing I've learned. The other thing is caveat emptor. That's the only Latin I know, only Latin I care to know. These people should have looked at the property better, I think, prior to buying the property to see if they had it. How can we as a county start accepting the responsibility for acts of God and basically throw our public works under the bus, or in this case down the tubes, when somebody comes to us and says, well, my property flooded, so I want $15,000 and I'll be happy and go away. We're going to have them lined up out to the Highway 90, I think, if that's the case. So I think we ought to let a judge decide this. If it costs us more than $15,000, at least it's been discussed by a judge and perhaps a jury. So we don't open a door to, again, the News Journal showed that day on their paper several people standing ankle deep in water. So how do we award this and then not expect other people to line up? In fact, you know, we all see all the commercials for law firms on TV. If you're hurt, come see me. I'm the hammer. Come see me. We're going to see commercials for, if your house flooded in Santa Rosa County, come see me. I'm Little Hammer. I don't go for the big bucks, but I'll take some of them little bucks. So I'm adamantly opposed to it, and I think we ought to fight it and get this settled. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cole. If there's no other comments on this, we'll move it to Thursday's regular agenda. Roy, do you want to speak now? Or?
We can discuss it on Thursday.
All right. Or you can get with us in between then. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, we'll move that to Thursday's regular agenda. All right, item number 7 is advertising for public hearings. This is discussion of approval to advertise for public hearings on the sales tax ordinance and the resolution for expansion of the county seat. Do we have any questions or comments from any of my fellow board members or members of the audience on this? All right, hearing none, we will move that to Thursday's consent agenda. And then that brings us to the last item on the administrative committee is the Discovery Center design and multi-year. Okay, before we get started by Erica, because I know she is going to knock our socks off with the presentation, we're going to take a brief with 5-minute work. Let's take a 10-minute break and come back at the top of the hour. All right, thank you for those of you who stayed with us till after the break. And so hopefully you had a chance to stretch your legs. All right, so next we're going to have Erica come up and talk to us about the Discovery Center design as well as the multi-year implementation program. All right, good morning, Erica.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to explain this somewhat complicated scenario to you. I've broken it down into 3 parts to get through, and hopefully it makes sense. Today I'm going to ask for your guidance related to 3 items. The first is an MYIP revision to account for budget and scope changes to existing projects. And then at that point, I'll ask you to consider cost share for possible budget increases. The second item today that I'm seeking guidance on is related to a funding increase for the Discovery Center design, and then possibly discussion of funding for Discovery Center construction. And the third item today is related to the opportunity to add new projects to an MYIP revision process if you all desire. And one thing I'd like to make clear related to the MYIP, or the multi-year implementation plan, is that just like the Pot 3 state expenditure plan, the multi-year implementation plan can be used as a planning document for future years if desired. So if you all were interested in planning out, even throughout the life of the funding source, which is through 2031, you have that option. Action item number 1, MYIP revisions. Just a brief history related to the MYIP summary. It's a requirement of Treasury Department, so we can't get away, we can't run straight to the projects. We have to plan for them and get that approved by Treasury Department first. In 2014, 2015, projects were solicited from the public, scored by the local Restore Council, and then approved by the BOCC. There were 15 projects initially totaling about $3.7 million. Each MYIP revision or a new MYIP triggers a 45-day public comment and review period. And in 2017, Treasury accepted our initial MYIP. Since that time, all of the counties, all of the 23 Gulf Coast counties who receive Restore funding have learned a lot of lessons. Treasury Department has learned a lot of lessons. For those of you that were here in 2014, 2015, if you recall at that time, Treasury Department had not been a granting agency prior to that time. They had not established rules for granting. The Restore Act was brand new. In fact, our federal guidance for awards that we use now, 2 CFR 200, had not been in existence yet. So right around that time, there were a lot of unknowns when we started the process. One thing that wasn't abundantly apparent at that time was that there was a significant administrative burden required from all of these projects that were solicited. And that can be tough for smaller organizations to meet or nonprofit organizations to meet, or for just projects with small projects that mean well but really have small dollar amounts. Counties have learned over time that fewer larger projects are more appropriate for federal funding. And the reason for that is you're going to have a similar amount of administrative burden, whether it's a multi-million-dollar project or a $10,000 project. So when you consider your administrative cost, other counties have decided over the years that it makes more sense and it's more efficient to fund a fewer number of larger projects with Restore funding. Also, Treasury Department has given some advice, some great advice. They say, hey, county, you have a project idea? Talk to us first before you start down that road and assume that it's going to be a great fit for Restore. Restore funding, each of the 5 pots of Restore have different requirements and different eligible activities, and they're administered by different agencies. So Treasury says, why not, why don't you save the heartache, going back and forth with us and working with our attorneys for months or years on end, and just talk to us about the project right up front. We'll let you know if it looks like a good fit. These are the projects right now that are in the current MYIP that need budget revisions. And the first column was the initial amount requested, or the initial amount approved in the MYIP. And then the second column shows the budget shortfall. And the third column is a recommendation moving forward. The first 2 projects are City of Gulf Breeze projects. They're both stormwater projects. They were initially approved with a 1-to-1 match, meaning the City of Gulf Breeze is matching dollar for dollar what Restore will fund. My recommendation is to continue to fund those projects at the 1-to-1 match. I've discussed this with the city manager, and she is agreeable to those terms. Those projects, they are able to still move forward with those projects with a continued 1-to-1 match. The next project is the Blackwater Heritage State Trail improvements. Our grants director, Sheila Fitzgerald, looked at that project and realized, hey, since we're pulling down a federal award for this, why don't we really do some needed improvements? There are some areas of the trail that are in pretty dire need of repair. So the shortfall, the $75,000 shortfall would address those dire needs in addition to the original components of the project. And the last two projects, I'm sure you're familiar with Quinn Street Marina as the City of Milton project, and the Discovery Center, obviously, you've heard presentations and we'll get into more depth on. The reason I came up with those recommendations is we also need to pull some projects out of the MYIP that are not viable. And we're going to pull out, or I'm asking for approval to pull out about $800,000 worth of projects that cannot move forward for various reasons, or have already been implemented, as the case of one of those projects there. The organization just was able to move forward without the restore funding. So when we pull those $800,000 worth of projects out, if the board is agreeable to funding at the recommended levels, we have a total initial MYIP of about $3.4 million as opposed to $3.7 million, so we're still under budget overall, if you will. And then one project, Navarre Park Water Quality Improvement, will need a scope of work modification so that it can better align with the Navarre Park Master Plan. And this is a lot of information at once. If you all decide today that you are agreeable to allow staff to amend the MYIP in the manner shown, there will be a follow-up agenda item where the actual budget's details in the draft MYIP and narrative would be brought back to the board for approval before the 45-day public comment period would start. Action item number 2, Discovery Center budget increase. Little history about the Discovery Center. Charlene's group first submitted this project with the solicitation for projects in 2015. The initial request was for $2.34 million, which included exhibits. One thing that I'll point out is when the county solicited projects at that time, there wasn't a high standard in terms of design or cost estimates. So that's one of the reasons that some of these cost estimates are off. Feasibility studies weren't conducted. It was really more of a, give us your best assessment of what this project will cost. And so this is one instance where the $2.34 million, as it turned out and as we went through this process and learned a lot more about what's required to build a facility like this, we see that that number is substantially under budget. The Restore Council recommended funding the design phase with the initial MYIP, which is estimated to be $265,000. In 2018, Caldwell was selected through the RFQ process, and at that time, there were a lot of unknowns. When we said, okay, we have this grant agreement, we have this great idea, now we have an architect, but there's a lot of stuff we don't have. We don't have an established relationship between the county and Marine Edge. Marine Edge at that time hadn't developed a business plan, so we thought, well, we can't really start spending design dollars when we're not entirely sure where we're going. So staff recommended breaking the design phase into two components, a programming or pre-design phase, and then an actual planning phase where the construction documents would be developed. So the programming or pre-design phase is complete. Marine Edge has developed a business plan. We have an MOU between the county and Marine Edge that has started to lay out how this project would look in the future moving forward if the facility is constructed. So during this programming phase, we've answered a lot of questions and we have a lot more information to provide you all at this time. So here are the revised numbers, approximate numbers. The actual planning cost for this facility will be in the range of $1.3 million, of which a substantial chunk, $565,000, will be for exhibit design. I think Michael, during his presentation, talked about why the exhibits are obviously the focal point of a facility like this, and there are a lot of reasons why the cost is substantial. Some of them just have to do with making sure you have the adequate filtration systems for the water. You have to make sure that you're able, obviously, to keep the exhibits alive and healthy, and I'm sure Charlene can answer any follow-up questions that you have related to that. But since these exhibits are going to be a focal point, and since the the behind the scenes, the filtration systems and such, have to be accounted for in the design. You really have to incorporate that into your design process. It's much more difficult to build a building. At that point, you can't just, build a building and wedge exhibits into it. It has to be a process that unfolds simultaneously. So construction funding for the project, and I'm going to ask Michael or someone to correct me, that we're looking at roundabout, I think, a 9,000 square foot air-conditioned facility at this price point. So $5.7 million for the construction. And then an additional $3.5 million for exhibit construction. So as you can see there, Restore funding is requested for the planning and the construction. And then Marine Edge feels confident that through their fundraising efforts, they will be able to raise the $3.5 million for the exhibits. This is a key part of the presentation today for a few reasons, but from my perspective as the grant manager for the design grant, I am working with an executed contract with a grant end date of December 2019. So as we've touched on in previous slides, the scope of work and budget that's in the approved MYIP cannot be modified. So right now we have a project that doesn't match what's in or potential project that doesn't match what's in the MYIP. So I am requesting guidance from the board today related to the request for additional funding for planning, because I will need to initiate an MYIP revision to accommodate that, and then I will then need to initiate, as a step 2, a grant agreement revision. So there are 2 processes there that have to go through a federal agency and be completed before December 2019. So that needs to get started sooner rather than later so that we don't violate the terms of our grant agreement. So as you're contemplating these requests for funding for various projects, it's probably helpful to know what we have available right now. This chart shows it's basically a 5-year outlook for funding. Treasury, if you can actually go to U.S. Treasury Department and you can click on our bank account balance. Treasury keeps lists that are updated once or twice a year that show what is available to every city, county, state that receives Restore funding. And they term that first column gross deposit. Basically, that's all the money Treasury's given us so far. So to date, they've given us just $7.7 million. The second column, available for new projects, that is what is not allocated to the initial MYIP. So that's basically what is available to work with right now. We have not received our 2019 allocation yet, but we will any day now. And once we receive that 2019 allocation, we'll have $6.2 million in our Treasury bank account, if you will. Treasury doesn't call it our bank account, but I think that's easiest for y'all to know that the money is there for us to use, and all we have to do is put it in the MYIP and get an approved federal grant application. These allocations continue at a rate of about $1.6 million per year through the year 2031. So if, for your planning purposes, if you decide that you are interested in incorporating any new projects in this MYIP revision, you can keep in mind that in 2024, we have $14.5 million that are currently unallocated. So on to action item number 3. Is there an interest to add new projects to the MYIP revision? Or if you're not ready to commit so strongly as to include in the MYIP, some guidance to staff, at least related to some of the projects, would be helpful to make sure that we're able to assist with these projects that are priorities. So this beautiful table here shows 4 projects that are Restore eligible, that I have conceptually vetted with Treasury Department, which means I have over the phone talked with Treasury Department and said, hey, we have this project, this is basically what it is, what are your thoughts in terms of getting that through your process to get funding? So these are all projects that Treasury has said are viable projects through Restore. There are 2 wastewater treatment facilities on here. Obviously, those are going to be complicated projects, so getting them through Treasury Department would be a complicated process, but in this case, we're looking at large projects and large sums of money. So my recommendation would be that those would be instances where the complicated nature, the payoff is worth the trouble, if you will. So we have our Navarre Beach Wastewater Treatment Facility Effluent Relocation Project with an approximate cost of $30 million. We have $5.5 million set aside already from Restore Pot 3 in the state expenditure plan. Right now, those funds are set toward the end of the 15-year payout period, but those are adjustable. The consortium voted a year or so ago to reevaluate the SEP in 4-year blocks. So there's opportunity to pull that funding down quicker, but it would be very helpful for staff to know that, if that's something the board is interested in, it would be very helpful for staff to know that now, so the discussions can begin with the consortium manager to make sure, one, that it happens, and two, to really evaluate all options and set us up in the best position to pull down those funds as quickly as they're needed. So my recommendation would be, if you're interested in applying some Pot 1 funds to match what's already been set aside from Pot 3, I would suggest giving staff a target date for project commencement. I have 2024 up there with a question mark. I think it would be difficult to make the changes in Pot 3 and have the funding available prior to 2024. However, I don't want to say it's impossible, but 2024 is a reasonable expectation in terms of making adjustments with the Pot 3 process. But my point is, in order to align those two funding sources, as much advanced planning as necessary is most helpful to staff because they're too complicated in different funding sources. Next, we have Metro and Estates Stormwater Project. This project, I think you even just heard at the last set of meetings, this project has been submitted twice for HMGP funding, but it could be several years to approval. Restore can fund this project. Treasury Department said this is a pretty quick, straightforward infrastructure project. There's no requirement for benefit cost analysis like there is with the HMGP process. We have a gully repair project up there that was brought to us by Trent Matthews. In fact, he's been, sort of pitching this idea for a few years now. Trent is with he's with the USDA NRCS program, and he's located at our extension office. Unfortunately, he can't be here today to speak on this project, but this is a project that would address substantial sedimentation in the northern part of the county. And over the years that I've been up here talking to you all about the SRA program or about water quality projects, I've heard repeatedly, look north, look to north end of the county, and this has been identified through the USDA NRCS program as a priority area for dealing with some of the most severe sedimentation. And finally, we have our City of Milton. I'm going to mess up the acronym. Their wastewater treatment upgrade, which you all are very familiar with. Restore is eligible as a funding source for this project, but Restore would need to fund an independent phase of this project. Otherwise, the entire project would be federalized. And as you all know, we have our city manager from the City of Milton here to answer any questions related to this project. But my understanding is they have broken their project and their approximate $30 million cost into 5 distinct phases. So if you all were interested in applying Restore funding to that project, I would recommend choosing a phase, a smaller phase. I believe the phase 1 is 18 million, which would probably not be the best fit for this funding source, but a subsequent smaller phase for Restore funding. And the reason you don't want to federalize a project is because that would inadvertently make it more expensive. You would have to meet wage requirements, and there would be a lot more documentation and such that would possibly increase the overall project and most likely slow it down as well. So it's a lot of information, but just to pull it back to the three categories, if you will, where I'm seeking guidance. I'm seeking approval to revise the MYIP, and I strongly recommend that we do that because we have to amend the Discovery Center. No matter what the decision is today related to the increased funding cost for that project, the MYIP has to be revised because the design does not cost $265,000. So I strongly recommend that you do authorize staff to revise the MYIP and to account for the budget and scope changes to 6 projects, to remove 4 non-viable projects, to address the Discovery Center, and then lastly, provide guidance to staff related to any new projects. Clear as a bell, right? Thank you so much for bearing with me through all of that.
Thank you. Commissioner Cole?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Erica, I don't know how you stand there and rattle off all this, other than you're very dedicated to your job, and I appreciate that. And I certainly am not going to try to keep up wits with you, but my feeling is that we need, we're looking at feel-good projects and need-to-have projects. I won't support Quinn Bayou, and I won't support the Discovery Center over water quality projects, which to me, the Milton Sanitation or the Santa Rosa, whatever the acronym is, we'll figure it out later. We'll get Mr. Jorgensen up here to rattle it off. It's not, the main thing is it's not the Milton sewerage system. It contains our industrial parks, which when we outgrow that system, if we're not up to a new capacity, we lose the ability to put boots on the ground in our industrial parks. So that to me is important. And we have the Discovery Center making a good argument for their program, and I don't know how many times I heard from the speakers, water quality and phased growth. Well, how do you taunt water quality, and we want to teach water quality, and we want to have water quality when right a block away we're pumping effluent into the sound? So to me, those two questions, just for one commissioner sitting up here for your direction, to me those are the two priority projects that we need to pull out or keep in this. I agree, the ones that are not feasible, just file 13 those. But I want to see I want to see those ribs in place, and I want to see a new sewer plant in our industrial park before I go with any feel-good projects.
Thank you. Commissioner Peach?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Eric, I'll try and boil this down. You did a great job explaining it, but just for my blue-collar background sake, the available funds slide you had, anything we add to the MYIP comes out of that available for new projects slide,
Yes, that's correct.
to include funding increases for current projects.
The slide includes for new projects, yes, but the slide includes the allocation. We basically pull out the $3.4 million, so with the recommended funding levels for the existing projects, so it accounts for that.
Right.
But not any new projects.
Okay, so in short, the Discovery Center going up to 7 whatever million, that extra 5 million has to come out of that right column as well?
Correct, yes.
Okay, that's where I was just trying to
Yes,
get
sir.
to. I agree with Commissioner Cole. I mean, my priority is water quality and the sound, first and foremost. I mean, I've met with tons of folks. I would like to see us push hard for the Navarre Beach wastewater treatment plant effluent out of the sound. I would like to try and increase the amount of funds we get from that to help offset the cost of that project. And I would like to move on that project yesterday, but I know that's not possible, Roger. But we're about to get our permit renewed again for another 5 years.
Yes.
We went through a lot of discussion, I'll put it that way, about that permit. I would hate to see us go through that again, and I may or may not be sitting up here, I don't look that far in the future, but I would like to use the time I have right now to move that project forward as much as possible to solve that issue of the effluent, treated effluent going into the sound to improve the water quality. So I would be a strong proponent of increasing the funding and tying it together to the maximum extent possible to take care of that which in my opinion is a very high, one of my number one issues, is to get that effluent out of the sound, as well as to assist Milton with the Blackwater, because that flows into the Blackwater, it flows down to East Bay, it affects everything, you know. And I, believe me, when you say federalizing a project, I understand. I've dealt with those for a long time. So those are my priorities, and as I just, you know, keep a running tab on this column here, you know, I would like to throw out asking for at least another $5 million for the Milton wastewater treatment plant, if that's possible.
Sure.
That would be, and then whatever the phases are for the Milton wastewater treatment plant, I think those need to be included in there. I think, you know, taking care of people's homes and flooding are great. I love the Discovery Center. I want to see something happen there. But when I put it next to, you know, water quality and infrastructure, those are where my priorities sit. I still want to do something with the Discovery Center, but as I put those priorities in place, that's kind of where I'm sitting with the folks I've dealt with out there. It's awesome. The Discovery Center is awesome. I think it's fantastic. I would have some questions, you know, if we need to get that out of the old Ranger Station, which is horrible. I don't disagree there at all. Can we do the classroom and administrative first, as opposed to the actual Discovery Center, where we're reaping the education benefits? Why wouldn't we do, you know, take care of the most pressing need first of fixing the classrooms and that where the students are, as opposed to putting that in a further out phase? And then federalizing it, I have questions for the consultants. Is the cost estimate we're seeing, the 5.7 and the 1 is that under Davis-Bacon and all the federal requirements, or is that just a local rough cost estimate? I understand we have to go through more detailed cost estimates, but I worry that that price could go up before we, you know.
Yes, I don't know if that includes Davis-Bacon, but your point is well taken. And even as Mr. Crawford pointed out, construction costs are rising as in part due to the situation to the east of us.
Yes.
And just also because of the housing boom. So I think that he's done he's definitely been cognizant of that, so I think he's done given really conservative estimates in terms of accounting for those possible increases over time. But obviously, Charlene or the Caldwell team would be best able to answer those questions.
Okay. And then just one more thing for my fellow commissioners. I promised Dan and Mark that I'd stay quiet on this topic until we got the courthouse awarded. But after going through the MPOAC weekend training last weekend and that, we need to keep in mind whatever we do out on the beach, we're going to need a bridge in 10 to 15 years. And we can't keep our head in the sand that long, because the one thing I learned with the MPOAC process, and FDOT doesn't own that bridge, we do. We need to be thinking about that and the options associated with that as we look at the master plan and everything else out on Navarre Beach. More to come on that later, but I at least wanted to throw it out there while Dan's away, because Mark can't yell at me as hard as he can. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I've been just watching TDC trying to get a roundabout out there, so anyway. All right, Commissioner Lynchard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not sure where to start here. I guess I'll start at the top. So three things we need to give you guidance on. Our MYIP, the amendments that are requested, I think the first three are easy decisions for us. The Driftwood, Navy Cove, Berry Stormwater, Eufaula, and the Blackwater Heritage State Trail improvements. I don't see any reason to hold you up on pursuing the amendment to the MYIP on those items. Quinn Street Marina and the Discovery Center obviously are the big ones to talk about. Our original MYIP, and then we have so much to talk about, I don't know where to start. Then we have our new projects as number 3. I'm going to take that out of order. Our original MYIP, was a very deliberative process with a tremendous amount of public involvement that was developed over months and months and months. Actually, I think it took well over a year to develop our initial MYIP, and it was cumbersome, and we were struggling to find our way many times. But that's because it was the first time that had ever been done, period. Not just in Santa Rosa County, but anywhere. So us and the other counties were all trying to find our way to come up with a methodology to put the restore dollars to work in a manner that would do justice to the harm that these funds were meant to mitigate. Part of that, and part of what this board did, was we put a lot of emphasis on leveraging additional funds. We wanted to take our restore dollars, and with $1 million in restore, we didn't want to have $1 million in projects at the end of the day. We wanted to stretch those dollars, leverage them as much as possible. That's why the City of Gulf Breeze, with their outfall and water quality improvements, they brought that project forward, those projects forward, with a 1-to-1 match. So our restore dollars are being doubled. The amount of projects, the amount that we're able to put to use in Santa Rosa County is being doubled. So out of the original $3.6 or $3.7 million that we had programmed in our MYIP, we had close to $8 million worth of projects that were set to be delivered at the end of the MYIP. I want to see us continue that focus. And I think we can do that with some of these projects. The wastewater treatment plant, both City of Milton and Navarre Beach, I think we have an opportunity to stretch our local component there. The administration in the state now has put a lot more focus on water quality. They're trying to put a lot more dollars into water quality. We've had a request, a legislative request, for several years for funding for Navarre Beach wastewater treatment plant to assist us in getting that effluent out of the sound. We've never put forward a significant match along with that ask from the state. It's easy to ask for $20 million if you don't have to bring anything to the table. But given the new focus at the state level, at the administration level anyway, on water quality, I think it would be worth pursuing a process of amending our MYIP, work with our local delegation and others at the state, find out what kind of local match do we really need to put up to have a legitimate shot at obtaining some state funding or other dollars if there are federal funds available for relocating that effluent, and then make a sincere effort to move forward. We have $5.5 million that we know we're getting from the state expenditure plan. If it's a $25 million project, we have 5 covered, that leaves 20. If we put up 10 from our local component of Restore and ask for 10 from the state, well, the state's going to fund in total less than 50% of that project. They like to see their dollars stretched too. The legislature likes to take their dollars and leverage them against other funding sources. But I think we have an opportunity there to pursue that. The same thing could be done with the City of Milton's wastewater treatment plant. I'm just not as familiar with that project as the one on Navarre Beach, but I agree with everything else that's been said that needs to be a priority as well. The Blackwater River is a fantastic water body and needs to be protected. So I think we can accomplish at least move in the right direction on the water quality, the big ticket item, the wastewater treatment plant with that. We still have over $20 million left to program in our MYIP over the next 20 years almost, 15 years. There's no reason to spend all this money now, though, or a large portion of it. I mean, we can let these projects develop. Our money is sitting there, as Erica said. It's in our account, and it's not going to go away if we wait to utilize those dollars. Because I think again, our initial MYIP was developed, it was a painstaking process, but it was deliberative, lots of public input, and I think we need to stick with that. We need to ask for and receive that public input on where this money needs to be put to use. Again, it's a one-shot deal, Restore was, and at the end of the process, when we're all gone, that money needs to have made a significant difference in Santa Rosa County. And I think the best way to do that is to try to leverage those dollars against other funding sources, like the state. So that would be my request or suggestion for how we conceptually plan for the future under number 3. I understand the big ticket items. I certainly want to pursue those. I don't want to do it just as a board. I think we need, at a meeting, I think we need to have some dedicated workshops or meetings to Restore. Maybe we don't need to stand up the local Restore Council like we did before, but we need to make an effort to get as much public input as we can and really put a lot of thought into how we want to use those dollars going forward. Okay. So, number 1, I'm good with the first 3 suggestions on the project revision list. I think we can move forward and amend our MYIP to tackle the big ticket items. I would still like to see us have some room for smaller items. Erica, I understand that the process is very labor intensive. The Blackwater Heritage Trail, that's a $115,000 project. Would you consider a project of that scope too small for a future project?
In my opinion, yes.
Okay.
I think projects of $1 million or more
$1 million or
make
more.
more sense, and I think that if you look across the other counties, you'll see that they're moving in that direction as well.
And that's fine. I would like, as we move forward towards amending our MYIP, I would like to open it back up to not just the items on this list, but if our municipal partners have additional water quality or stormwater projects that they're interested in pursuing at some level of match, bring them forward. And let's take a look at those as well. Again, trying to stretch our local Restore component as far as we can. So now turning to the Discovery Center. Well, back up. Quinn Street Marina Phase 1. You have it listed as further discussion, but we didn't really talk about it. So
Yes.
what do we need to discuss on that?
If it's all right with you, I'll have the city manager. It's been expressed to me that the biggest priority for the city of Milton is the wastewater treatment facility, so I'll let Mr. Jorgensen address that.
Thank you.
Randy Jorgensen, 6738 Dixon Street, City Hall, Milton, Florida. Quinn Street Marina is a project that we'd ultimately like to undertake. I don't know that this is, that these are proceeds that should be used for that purpose. Our priority is that wastewater treatment plant. An appropriate investment in the future of central Santa Rosa County can be made in regard to that. If we have to forego the request for the marina, we are willing to. I'll add that the initial cost estimate on the marina at $1,009,000 was, for lack of better words, understated. That I have since had that project revisited by an engineering firm and architectural design firm, and the costs have escalated significantly. I think as a city, we are looking to reevaluate the direction we'd like to go in regard to that endeavor, and to ask you, as you have expressed, to place an emphasis on critical infrastructure to the economic needs of Santa Rosa County.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Jorgensen. I'll yield to Commissioner Cole. for a moment.
Randy, I just want you to know, as long as I'm sitting here, which is, I guess, another 4 years anyway, just as we did with Russell Harbor and Carpenter's Park, I would like, as District 2 representative, to work with the city on improvements, because we all know that none of our parks have signs up that say city residents only, or Chumuckla residents only, or anything like that. So, and also maybe look at, in the future, applying boater fees to the construction of that. So I appreciate you working with us on that. And what's the name of the wastewater treatment plant?
North Santa Rosa Regional Water Reclamation Facility. I myself will refer to my notes.
And I'll take credit for that, because I think our discussion was, if I'm sitting on the restore board and I'm looking at restore dollars for the city of Milton sewage plant versus a regional aspect, I'm more likely to pay attention to it on a regional aspect, and you guys renamed it at that point.
In regard to that, we're a community of less than 6 square miles. Our utilities reach 64 square miles. We can convert 6,000 current septic system users to municipal service as a result of this project. We will remove our outfall into the Blackwater River as a way to have, I think, positive downstream effect in Santa Rosa County. The wellfield protection area that serves the potable water users of southern Santa Rosa County are protected by the construction of this facility. The second phase of its development, which includes the effluent reuse main and the RIBs, the rapid infiltration basins that are the disposal area proposed north of Whiting Field, is the aspect of the project that we think these proceeds could be applied to. That total project cost is about $6 million, 6.5. It would be useful if between the money you have already pledged to this project and this money, that need could be met. That portion of the project would then be federalized, but it would be limited to that portion. I agree with Commissioner Linsard's expressions as it relates to the state's new direction and trying to spend more money on environmental stewardship so that the issues that have plagued South Florida don't become present in this part of Florida. And this project can help and ensure that that happens. We've engaged 2 firms to assist us with both state and federal funding for the total project at $30 million. We look forward to this commitment and advancing our continued pursuit of the additional funds. Between Santa Rosa County and the city of Milton, if that component of the project is in fact taken on by the county, we can demonstrate approximately a 1-to-1 on the balance of the project's needs. Half of it would be paid by those 2 jurisdictions, us and you. So I think it will work. Your manager is on the wastewater treatment plant committee that has been established within the city. He partakes in conversations every 2 weeks at formal meetings to this end, and he has looked at that component favorably. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cole?
And the only question I would have, and I'll refer to Commissioner Lynch or Erica, the project at Navarre, we pretty much run that show. We decide where we're going to phase it and how we're going to do it. So how do we give assurance to the city of Milton that we're willing to take on a phase of it, so we can't federalize all of it? How do we tell them, or where do we make a decision that, okay, Mr. Jorgensen, go back to the city council and tell them that we're going to dedicate this much money out of Restore for this phase, and that's where I need some help with.
Commissioner Lynch?
I think as a part of our MYIP amendment process, the city could bring a new project to us sort of a bite-sized project to us, and we could plug that into our amended MYIP. Same thing, the City of Gulf Breeze, if they have additional stormwater or water quality projects that they want to pursue, they could bring that to us as we're amending our MYIP, and we could plug that into the amended version. Because it's still going to be their project. They're going to have to bring it to us. They provide the ask, and then we can plug it into our MYIP if it fits with our overall goals and objectives. So as we're doing that, step one, I guess, it probably would be safe for us to, in the amendment to the MYIP, pull the Quinn Street Marina project with a gentleman's agreement that that money will be reserved and applied along with additional funds towards the city's effort to relocate the wastewater treatment facility. And then that brings us to the Discovery Center. And we've talked about construction that at least a couple of commissioners don't feel that construction dollars are warranted when we have other projects that are water quality related. This was originally estimated at a little over $3 million, $3.7 million. Our initial grant was $265,000 under the MYIP, and the scope of that was design, or site selection, design, permitting, and a set of construction documents.
That's correct.
And how much has been expended to date?
Approximately $100,000 for
Okay.
programming.
And if we amend our MYIP or allocate additional dollars, how much are we looking at additionally to get to fulfill our obligations under the grant?
Additionally, it would be about an additional $1 million, approximately.
Another $1 million to get to where we have site selection, design, permitting costs, and construction
Yes.
plans that we originally had estimated at $265,000.
Yes.
But there is another option. We don't have to amend our MYIP and fund that. Right now, we have our design, what exactly do we have now?
We have our programming, or our pre-design, if you will, which, as you saw, the slides in Mr. Crawford's presentation were pulled from the programming document. So they discussed the general layout, the theme, the exhibits, the requirements, the space, etc. That's what we have now. So the one option is to amend the MYIP to allow for the cost increase to meet our current set of deliverables. Another option is to request an amendment to amend the MYIP to change the deliverables to the programming document or the pre-design. Okay. And I have discussed that with Treasury. It looks like it would be, I don't want to say likely to be approved, but it's a reasonable request.
Okay. So we could accept what we have to date, the design, and then we have a design, we have our programming for the project. So if additional dollars in the future are allocated to it, or if the group finds the dollars available for exhibit design of $3.5 million and some help with construction, we can come back, pick up where we left off,
yes,
and move forward with the construction design. But we're not spending another $1 million for a set of plans that we don't have funding to build. And 5 years from now or 8 years from now when we do, things have changed and we have to update those construction documents to whatever building code is in effect then. So that's an option, is to accept what we have now as our deliverables under the contract. We've spent $100,000. We have the design, the programming complete, and we're not allocating another $1 million to put plans on the shelf. And the other alternative is to pull it completely, right? And we can reimburse our
Yes,
grant.
yes, and that's an option, and that's a small risk that we would take if we move forward with the path to amend the deliverables. There's a small chance that wouldn't be acceptable to Treasury, and we would have to repay the money. No matter what option, though, I think we need to amend the MYIP, even if we were to just pay the money ourselves.
Agreed. Yeah, we should put it in as an amendment to the MYIP. But under that scenario, worst case, we come up with a way to fund the $100,000 expended to date, and that just goes back into our Restore bank account. Essentially, we're repaying the grant back. That money can then be utilized towards another project.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Commissioner Salter?
Mr. Chairman, I think I understand what Commissioner Lyncher said. He's our Restore guru. He's been serving on the Restore Council for a long time, so I depend on him for a lot of good information. My two top priorities, Navarre wastewater treatment and the Milton wastewater treatment. Those two are my two top priorities. One that we kind of lost track of was the USDA gully project. That's $1 million. I've always said you can't fix things downstream until you fix things upstream. So if that gully is running clay into the river, and which eventually ends up in the Gulf, I think that needs to be funded as well. So my three top priorities: wastewater treatment plant Navarre, Milton, and the gully. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cole?
Mr. Chairman, and I agree with Commissioner Salter, especially sitting on the estuary board as a chairman and being with BARC all these years, but have we never been able to get any funding from USDA or DEP or any of those agencies for that gully? I mean, if they're going to bring it to our attention, it'd be nice if they also brought their checkbook with them.
Trent was hoping to be here today to speak on the project himself, but he had a family issue to deal with. I've been told that the project has been submitted for other funding sources, in particular Deepwater or BP oil spill funding sources, and has made it down various pathways, but never ultimately received funding. So it's something that Trent has been working on for several years. He first brought it to my attention 2 or 3 years ago. He's spoken to the estuary program related to this project. So it's, he's definitely been doing, examining all avenues to try to pull funding, but no, at this time, he does not have funding from any other source.
And anything, and I'm certainly not against it, I'm just looking at that $1 million kind of latitude to be more trouble than it's worth, for no better sense of the word. I mean, that's basically what I'm taking from him on this. With the governors, pushing so hard on some of these environmental things, could we have a placeholder for that project right now and submit something to our legislative delegation to try to get funding for that?
That I would imagine would probably, would most likely be next year's delegation that we would submit that request. And absolutely, and, again, my third bullet or my third action item is the one that's really not the most clearly defined in terms of, if you all want to just let staff know what your priority projects are now, we can take action, and if the action is to work more closely with Trent to try to develop that project or seek other funding, that's certainly, that can be the action or the direction for staff today.
I guess Plan A, Plan B type thing.
Sure.
I don't want to not do it, but if we
Sure.
can do it.
Absolutely.
Again, just going by your guidance that, this is kind of one of the projects that's right there on the borderline of, being where it's at.
Well, we can expand the project as well. There are actually 2 gullies that Trent was looking at. So if we added the second gully, it would be $1.3 million for a total project cost, so that would...
All right. I'm going to leave that up to you.
There's substantial projects and substantial undertakings.
Like Commissioner Salter said, it needs to be fixed. So
Sure.
thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll be the last one to chime in here real quick, Eric, on your 3 board items you're wanting action on, the multi-year implementation plan revision for the 6 projects and then removal of the 4 non-viable projects. I think the clearly the board all agreed to remove those 4 non-viable projects. I think we're all pretty much unanimous in making the changes that you recommended to those first 3 projects, the Driftwood, the Fall and the Blackwater Heritage State Trail. Sounds like the board's pretty unanimous in basically we are going to remove, I guess if that's the proper term, the Quinn Street Marina from this program. It sounds to me like we're pretty unanimous in the Discovery Center Phase 1. Whatever action you need to bring to us as far as so we word it correctly on to halt any further funding from, there's no reason if we're not moving forward with the whole shebang to go beyond the $100,000 that's already been expended. So if you'll bring to us how exactly you want us to do that as far as reimbursement or maybe find out what we need to do on that. Item number 2, I guess that sort of covers it there for the funding increase. I didn't hear any support for that, and I think that's the board's direction. And then for new projects, as far as I think it sounded like the board's pretty unanimous in the tier 1 and 2 as far as level of priority are the Navarre wastewater treatment facility, getting that discharge out of the sound, as well as helping with the relocation of the City of Milton wastewater treatment facility to get that effluent discharge out of the waterway. I would also be remiss if I didn't at least ask for the board's temperature on possibly adding, I know as Commissioner Salter just mentioned, the USDA program repair project there to get that gully repaired to help get some of that sediment out of Coldwater Creek upstream, but also the Metron Estates. If you combine Metron Estates and the gully repair project, I know that's about 11.5% of just what the project at the Navarre wastewater treatment facility would take. I know as you expressed, and it's reflected here in the document, that it's been conceptually vetted by Treasury Department. You told me you thought that could be implemented pretty quickly. Obviously, we've had this room full of folks right after their homes flooded from Metron Estates. I think about 28 houses that flooded just in the last 2 years I've been on the board. That's important, but to the restore component, we've already expended funds, I believe, out of our local option sales tax dollars. Correct me if I'm wrong. We've already done the conceptual designs. I know Jeff Helms is working on that. And what has been shown to me that's so important, and I'm not sure if this has been brought back to the board officially yet as they work that project, but there's this huge basin, and Roger's obviously much more of an expert than I am, but there's this huge basin that collects stormwater runoff in that area there in Pea Ridge that was all basically designed prior to these stormwater requirements that we now have. And that all water, obviously, as it accumulates, not only floods those houses in Metron Estates, but it continues to roll downhill. It's a very steep grade throughout the property where we're about to build the road, and that discharges into Pond Creek. And obviously, we know Pond Creek, especially with some of the, septic tank contamination and other things, is just like we're talking about where Commissioner Salter stated of cleaning those waterways up creek. And due to the fact that both of those projects could be done at only 15% of the cost as the Navarre Beach wastewater treatment facility. Obviously, it is in my district, so it's near and dear to home. But I would ask for the board's temperature on adding the Metron Estates project based on the discussion I had with Erica and all the points I just stated to our MYIP to get that done. There's not the huge amount of funding match like I know you had mentioned was a big concern. I mean, obviously, I think it was around $600,000 that we've expended to date on local option sales tax, but I love the fact that you say this is something that we could go ahead and move on pretty quickly, especially with the big thunderstorm, I guess, we had last night. It's right there on my mind. These are folks that we could not only improve water quality in Pond Creek, but we could possibly save these 28 folks from flooding again for the third or some of them fourth time. So I would ask for the board's temperature on adding that. But other than that, it seems like we're all pretty unanimous in the direction on those other items. Does anybody have any comments on adding that?
I would support adding that as a potential project and the gully as a potential project. And as staff puts together the information for those two projects, see if there are other sources that we may be able to bring to bear, additional matches for the gully project. Maybe that's the key to getting the USDA over the hump. You know, if we can use restore dollars as a match, but put it together as a project, and we'll consider it when we're doing the MYIP, because there's a 45-day notice and comment period anyway. So I don't see anything wrong with having projects in there that, with having projects proposed that may not ultimately make the cut and be plugged into the MYIP. Just like I don't want to discourage our municipalities from submitting additional stormwater quality projects as we go through this process.
Thank you, Commissioner Lynch. Commissioner Salter.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to go back to the restore eligible projects previously identified as county priorities: Navarre Beach Wastewater Treatment Facility, Metron Estates, the Gully Project, and the City of Milton wastewater. I would support all four of those.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public here to speak today on this item before we conclude it? I think you've all, yes, just please name and address for the record. I think you've pretty much got to hear our thoughts on it.
Yes, good morning. Carmen Reynolds, 9621 Sunnybrook Drive in Navarre. I would say that I'm very encouraged from what I'm hearing this morning about your intent to improve water quality in Navarre by removing the effluent from the sound. I'm going to speak very fast because this will substantiate some of your feelings. Navarre Beach continues to be a tourist destination. It is so robust that the bed taxes have increased from $3 million in 2018 to a projected $4.5 million for 2019. We would like to see that continue, but there are some issues, and you all are going to help us with that. The chemicals and the bacteria that are surviving the wastewater treatment process. Additionally, the runoff that comes from the stormwater adds road grime, salt, oils, and chemicals. In addition, down the drains in the toilets are the pharmaceuticals, the paint thinner, the household cleaning products, and the personal care products, the latter of which are known endocrine disruptors. This leaves it up to you, the policymakers, to keep the water safe for swimming, boating, and fishing out there for the residents and the tourists. Local experts have weighed in, like the Bream Fishermen Association. Barbara Albrecht has been quoted in the media as saying, ingesting fecal-infested water equals illness, and animals and fish can accumulate these contaminants, thus tainting the seafood. Well, we don't want that as a county, now do we? Residents on the Sound and in Williams Creek, where the Ribs is located, complain about the constant smell of sewage and its negative effect on their homes and their investments. Further assaults include the sewage spills into the Sound, October 2016, when 60,000 gallons of raw sewage spilled into Williams Creek area, and for over a week, 35 times the FDEP recommended max for bacteria existed. In October of 2017, the health advisory was announced when ECUA spilled 100,000 gallons of partially treated effluent into the Sound as a result of a generator failure from Hurricane Nate. With the warm, brackish water in the Sound, it makes it susceptible to bacteria and algae, red and blue and green algae dependent on nitrogen and phosphorus, phosphates being the byproduct of the wastewater treatment process. The bacteria Vibrio vulnificus has had 8 cases from affiliation with the Santa Rosa Sound within the last 10 years in Santa Rosa County, according to the Florida Department of Health. Escambia County 2015, there was a death from this bacteria. And in 2016, in Santa Rosa County, there were 2 deaths from this bacteria. Potential litigation is a valid concern. As recently as March 4th, last month, there was a poor rating at one of the testing facilities in Navarre Park for the bacteria Enterococcus, which resides in the gastrointestinal tracts of the humans. This is why, gentlemen, your commitment and action is so important. The improvement of our water quality and the preservation of our ocean is not only a precursor to the future growth of the tourism industry in Navarre Beach, but it ensures you are proactively addressing the public's health. And Commissioner Lynchard, thank you for your work on the Gulf Consortium and the 23 counties that they are addressing for water quality improvements. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. We
Mr.
have
Chairman, if I may,
Commissioner Salker.
we often hear about we haven't done this and we haven't done that for the Navarre wastewater treatment plant. Keep in mind, we've been negotiating with Eglin for a long time trying to get approval for that RIB system. And I'd like to ask Roger, where are we with Eglin?
We are very close. Matter of fact, we have been offered a lease. We have tentatively agreed to the concept, and we've re-identified the area that the lease will encumber. And the Eglin is in the process of updating their environmental baseline study and all of the work that we did back in '08 to reach a finding of no significant environmental impact. Eglin is updating that, and with that, we would anticipate getting a lease offer sometime in the next 60 days. What will happen then is the Board of County Commissioners will make a decision to execute the lease or not, and then we will send the signed lease back to the Department of the Air Force and go through DOD back to Washington for execution.
Thank you, and I want to thank you for all your hard work on working on that lease. And as a board, I'd like to see us move forward as quickly as possible to finalize that. Thank you.
Thank you. Erica, yes, please come forward and state your name and address.
My name is Sam Griffin, 2742 Edgewood Drive, Navarre, Florida, 32566. And I'm here. I'm a former student of the Navarre Beach Marine Science Station. I took the dual enrollment class out there for marine biology. I'm a current student at University of West Florida, majoring in biology. And I'm just here to share from the perspective of a younger generation of voters why we are active in the community, we vote, and we participate, we care about the environment. And I'm here to share why we support the Gulf Coast Discovery Center, and it stems from our programs back at the Navarre Beach Marine Science Station. These programs that have reached tens of thousands, as we said earlier, around 100,000 citizens, individuals annually, and those are children, adults, snowbirds, tourists, locals alike. And it has inspired them to take action and make a difference in their community. These programs increase public awareness and appreciation, ocean conservation, things such as water quality, and we are just at our maximum capacity right now. We are busting at the seams, as we said. There's so much room for expansion in this market of environmental kind of education, interaction with the public community. And we are just eager to, the part of the division of the Gulf Coast Discovery Center is to empower and inspire citizens, and we are just eager to see this project proceed. We are not ready to kind of stand down on this. So we're just ready to move forward and get with the next step of this project. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Have anybody else here that would like to speak?
Thank you. Although I'm very disappointed in the decision here, I just wanted to clarify that I know the importance of water quality. In fact, we currently have a NOAA grant where we would be doing additional studies in the area of the wastewater treatment plant. The Gulf Coast Discovery Center is not just a feel-good project and has never intended to be that. It was intended to be a site for tourism, community members, and students, because these guys that I crank out and our program cranks out are going to be the next generation of people sitting in your seats and monitoring the water quality and making a difference. So I'm disappointed that I do not have your support, the Gulf Coast Discovery Center, and most of all, I apologize to you guys, because that's what I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else here that would like to speak on this issue? Erica, I guess, do you need a board action? Is there any reason to move this to Thursday, or is guidance what you were looking for?
I think I need action just related to the MYIP revisions, and I think you've stated pretty clearly what that action would be to allow the revision process to commence.
Okay. I'll just ask that we leave that on the regular agenda, and that
Sure.
way between now and then you have a chance to
Oh, absolutely.
put in there the comments,
Okay.
and we'll move that forward.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Cole?
Erica, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Because I've always been supportive of the Marine Study Center. And Charlene, you know that ever since Gordon been here, I've been in favor of it. And even though we're kind of putting brakes on it right now, am I correct in thinking that is just what it is? And next year, the year after, they come to us and say, hey, we've raised $2 million. Can we plug some of that in to restore dollars? Will that be available until the end of restore?
Absolutely. It would just take another MYIP revision.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I just wanted to clarify that. So
Absolutely.
So we're not basically just, canning the whole idea, and it's something to consider and continue working for. And
Certainly.
I'd be in favor of doing that. So.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I really just trying to expedite and move the meeting along, but I'll comment to that too. We have to make priorities. One of the favorite things that I used to hear a former commissioner say is sometimes when they get to this board, there is no easy decision. Something I heard, I believe Michael Caldwell referenced several times, as well as you, is the huge impact this has to students. I think you even referenced it to be school-like twice in your presentation. That is another thing. I know, obviously the school board's budget is far surpassing what ours is. They also have a lot of other opportunities and obligations that they have to deal with. So I would treasure you not to look at the school board. I wouldn't look at that as a pass. I know you've commented on what the superintendent had told you. You're about to have a new superintendent, in a year. And so you've had a school board change since that time. And so I encourage you, since we have seeded, even through the presentation, that this is very integral into the student system, that we also look for them to funding. Again, that is over half of your property taxes go to the school board. So by no means is not a level of support. It's just we have to prioritize, and so please don't take it away from them. I would encourage you, to seek funding from them as well. Commissioner Peach.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I didn't mean to speak after you, but I just want to thank my fellow commissioners for the education process on Restore. Commissioner Lynchard, your work on that. And I support, and I truly love, my wife's an educator, what the education is, but as the chairman said, it comes down to priorities, and we don't have unlimited funds, and water quality and infrastructure are things that are key to our future here in Santa Rosa County. So I appreciate everyone speaking today. I appreciate all the missions. I do not want to close the door on the Gulf Coast Discovery Center, as Commissioner Cole said. We need to continue to work that, but unfortunately in today's fiscally constrained environment, we need to make priorities and hard choices. So I appreciate the rest of the commissioners' input and support.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for. Yes, ma'am.
When we formed the nonprofit, we went the right routes. I have never come to the county commissioners asking for a handout. And I'm proud of that. I was advised never to take taxpayer money, and I never asked for it, and I thought this would be the best route. Again, I'm disappointed, but I will always be this educator first. There will always be the science station, and with the new superintendent, I'm sure that we will continue to get the recognition, not that we don't right now, but I know we have the support through the school district for me to do what I do. And I'll continue to do that for years and years to come. And I appreciate you guys taking this into consideration. And I love teaching, and I will continue doing it whether or not we have the Discovery Center. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Charlene, for what you do. All right, we're going to move that to Thursday's regular agenda. All right. That will conclude the administrative committee. Next, we'll go to Roger for the engineer's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our first item today is a discussion of task order number 37 in the not-to-exceed amount of $39,000. This is from Jacob C.H. Tuhill to study, design, and prepare plans and specs to replace, I should say, the Navarre Beach Wastewater Treatment Plant Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition System, commonly known as a SCADA. The Navarre Beach Wastewater Treatment Plant, PLC, recently faulted on numerous occasions and has continued to have intermittent faults. Our initial investigation indicates that this is a end of life for the technology. We need to be looking at replacing that SCADA system. We have the scope and fee. We'll do that very thing. It'll identify the source of the PLC faults. It's going to look at developing protocols, because when the entire PLC failed, it failed to call an on-call operator, and that's just something that we cannot allow. And so we're recommending approval of the task order to proceed with creating a plan for the replacement of our existing SCADA system.
All right. Commissioner Peach and then Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Roger, I'd just like to make sure we work with these SCADA systems. I know there's the off-the-shelf ones where you buy licenses, and then there's ones that can be developed where we own it. Is this scope going to look at all those avenues, or so we don't pay licensing in the future, or is there training? Are we looking at the wide range, I guess?
Absolutely. We're looking at the full spectrum. Now, some of these modular PLCs come with the equipment, and you don't pay for all the extra stuff. There is a license fee associated with developing it, but rather than us paying a programmer and integrator to try to rewrite all that code, we have two of those. We have our belt filter press and another system that utilizes that. But this is the main PLC that shut down and shut both of those. So we'll be looking at that full scope.
Awesome.
Commissioner Cole, have any comments?
I'm fine.
All right. If we have no further questions or comments from any members of the public or members of the board, we will recommend moving this to Thursday's consent agenda for approval. Thank you, Roger.
Item number 2 and 3 relate to the preliminary plat and the construction plans for Yellow River Ranch Phase 1. This is going to be a 104-lot public subdivision. It's located south of Hickory Hammond on Shiloh Road, about a half a mile. And we're recommending the preliminary plat and the construction plans for Yellow River Ranch.
Thank you, Roger. If there's any members of the public or any board members that wish to speak on this, Commissioner Cole?
Just a comment, and this is just because we can't knock on each other's door. Commissioner Peach, with your close relationship and recently leaving the Air Force, we've talked for years and haven't got very far with the completion of Range Road from the new 87 South over to, I think it's Highway 85 in Crestview. And I had one discussion at one time years ago. Kyle Hawley, myself, and Mary Model had a meeting with the Air Force down there at Eglin, and we were pretty much shot down on completing that. The consideration would only be for a DOD road. You'd have to have a pass. You'd have to, you'd be sensitive to the plan of the day, which possibly would include closing that road at certain times for the mission. And between this ranch development and also the request we had earlier for the 5 acres in the industrial park for supplies, basically a lot of that sounds like to our military. I would like for you to possibly think about any meeting we could possibly set up to maybe readdress that.
Certainly, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, you recognized me. I've had some initial discussions with him, and that idea has been vetted. There's a new mission support group commander about to take the helm at Hurlburt, so I'm sure Colonel Dorman is going to brief him up. I'm meeting with him personally as well. So I know Hurlburt is in favor of that. It's when we go to Eglin and then the range folks. So there's actually 3 different, if you will, Air Force entities that we'll coordinate with, but that possibility has been discussed in the past. Didn't have a whole lot of traction, but I'm not giving up on it as long as I got a breath in me.
I got a map in my office. I'll be glad to bring that.
I would love to have a copy of it. So, my pleasure.
All right, thank you. And just for anybody that may be watching, probably an important nugget on this here, the Yellow River Ranch. Yes, it is a 104-lot subdivision. This was actually rezoned to a PUD, I believe, back in 2009. I've had the chance to review the plans. Looks like it'll be a beautiful project. I know we've got one representative here today had a chance to review it, and I just wanted to comment. When I talked with one of the folks involved with this last week, I said, it's pretty exciting to see sort of the revitalization of that 87 corridor around there, Interstate 10. This is, within just a couple miles of where we approved something earlier today, and then we've got some other items coming to us later this month, and then we just did the truck stop, and finally getting the old truck stop tore down. So I just wanted to say it's encouraging to see that activity out there in East Milton. So we'll give Commissioner Cole all the credit. And so I would recommend moving items 2 and 3 to the consent agenda for Thursday's approval without objection. Hearing none, those are moved. Thank you, Roger.
With that, item number 4 is a discussion of amendment number 1 to task order number GO18-04 with Geosyntec Consultants to perform our construction quality assurance services for the Phase 5 Cell A project at Central Landfill. The original task order provided for Geosyntec to do CQA. The construction schedule has been amended and adjusted based on heavy rains, as well as the construction schedule with the contractor requiring 2 sets of crews to observe the liner construction, as both 2 cells were being constructed simultaneously. We're recommending approval of the amendment number 1 to the task order. The funds for the CQA was allocated in current budget year, and so there'll be no need for a budget amendment.
Thank you. We'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda.
Item number 5 is a discussion the gentleman from Gulf Marine spoke on. I have with me here Greg Allen with Atkins to answer any specific questions the board may have. This is a discussion of a bid award to R.J. Gorman Marine in the amount of $1,286,193.20 as the lowest responsive bidder meeting specification. As you know, the board contracted with Atkins to develop plans and specifications to renovate the pier complex, which we're replacing the restaurant as well as the pier deck, the emergency vehicle, and handicap ramps on the pier complex. Bids were received on March 7th. 3 contractors submitted bids. They range from $1.087 million to $1.463 million. The low bidder, Gulf Marine Construction, submitted a conditional bid. I refer you to page 25 of 25 of their bid. It's in the backup. And as a result of a review from the county legal, Mr. Andrews, county engineering, and our consultant, Atkins, the Gulf Marine's bid was deemed non-responsive, and it is the recommendation of the 3 of us that we move on to the number 2 low bidder, R.J. Gorman.
Thank you. Commissioner Cole.
Mr. Chairman, I think the gentleman that appeared before this board earlier today made several questions, made a pretty strong discussion to this board and comments to this board that I wouldn't feel comfortable today accepting this bid or not. I'd like to see us move this to the regular agenda on Thursday, let Roger and Roy and Atkins have the opportunity to take each one of those questions and give us an answer for them, especially the one that Mr. Gorman or Gorman Marine isn't licensed yet. How in the world do you submit paperwork to do a job and you're not licensed to do so? So I just wouldn't feel, with the comments that have been made and not having those answers and not wanting to rush through the answers, that would be
Neither
my
of the
suggestion.
bidders submitted any licensing other than the Gulf Marine did submit a business tax receipt from Santa Rosa County, which costs $15, which the low bidder can get also. And the concern is a very legitimate concern that they want to rewrite our specifications and alter the warranty period and alter the random testing for the materials, which are the concern that we have with this project. The materials that were utilized last time did not hold up. I don't know that there's anything that would be necessary for me to look at between now and Thursday.
Okay. I don't have a problem leaving it on the regular agenda, and And that way Commissioner Cole can talk with Roger and anybody else between now and Thursday. And so if you're good with that, we'll just move it to Thursday's regular agenda.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Roger.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Peach?
Thanks, sir. And just for the record, I'm getting a lot of questions on the pier renovation. If Roger, if you can give us a couple of minute rundown of how this will happen, when this will happen, and what the impacts will be to the pier, so we could start getting that out to folks.
Right. One of the issues the gentleman brought up was the 90-day construction timeframe as being unrealistic and is associated with liquidated damages. That was brought up prior to the bid. We gave the contractor 278 days to complete the contract because there was some question about the ability to obtain the treated materials due to the impact of Hurricane Michael and the contractors and treating facilities. We gave them 270 days to complete the contract with the requirement that once they mobilized on site, they had 90 days to complete the work, and that the pier would remain open during the entire construction, 90-day construction period.
Yeah, and those were just a lot of the concerns. And then, I'm sure we have everything in there to protect the environment, with how we take it apart and things. But I wanted to get that out because there are a lot of activities that occur in the fall on the pier. So the sooner we get this out and coordinate with those folks and the way it's going to be executed, it'll be better, so.
All right, we'll move that to Thursday's regular agenda. Takes us to number 6. Thank you, Roger.
Item number 6 is a discussion of change order number 1 in the amount of $24,984.30 to utility service for the Settlers Colony Drainage Improvement HMGP project. This HMGP project has been under construction. The grant approved was allocating a total of $4.68 million in federal grants. Due to the magnitude, it was split up into 2 portions. Cumulative, the low bids are $263,000 more than the available construction money, so there's monies within the grant. Essentially, the change order from Utility Services is required to relocate a previously unknown water main. It was unknown not only to the contractor engineering, but also the county's engineer, but the utility services themselves, utility company was not aware of its presence. And so we're going to be required to relocate it as part of this project, and we'll recommend approval.
All right. If I hear no objections, we'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda.
Item number 7 is a discussion of the contract award to Site and Utility LLC in the amount of $107,200 for the Holly by the Sea Easement Maintenance Plan Phase 1. The board authorized the preparation of the RFQ for the clearing of the dedicated drainage easements at an estimated cost of $619,000 to be paid from road and bridge reserves. In September of 2018, authorized the engineering firm. We've gone out to bids. On March 21st, the county received bids from 2 contractors, and we're making a recommendation to award the contract to Site and Utility as the lowest bidder meeting specification.
All right, Commissioner Peach.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, just a couple of questions. How many phases do we got that broken down into? And then I'll get with you offline just to get the scope so I can share that with the folks down there in my district, so expectation management.
Essentially, there was 5 rounds of lumping these together. Each of them required permitting or at least coordinating with all the regulatory agencies, and this is Phase 1.
Phase 1 of 5.
Phase 1.
Awesome. I'll get with you for more. Thanks, Roger. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, we'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda.
Item number 8 is a discussion of change order number 3 with Site and Utility LLC for the Venetian Way Coronado Drive Drainage Improvements HMGP Flood Mitigation Project in the amount of $42,525. The project is one of 4 funded with the HMGP funds following the 2014 flood events. Improvements include new construction, removal, and upgrade existing stormwater sewer system, culverts, and pipes, and the ditches and the outfall ultimately into Santa Rosa Sound. The design was completed by Southern Site and Utilities, and the bid was awarded. However, during construction, it was revealed that the unforeseen sewer lateral conflicts require the addition of 14 conflict boxes. Essentially what happens is you have gravity sewer coming from the house, storm sewer, both of which are laid on grade, and they intercept one another. So rather than us just blindly covering all that up, you put a conflict box with a manhole top so that you can always go in and clean it out, and any debris that might be collected on that gravity sewer crossing through the storm sewer. And so we're recommending approval. Sufficient funds are within the existing budget.
All right, thank you, Roger. We'll move that to Thursday's consent agenda. I appreciate that good report. Next, that'll take us to Commissioner Cole with the Public Services Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We got 2 items on public service. One is for the Munson Volunteer Fire Department Substation, use of loss and MSBU funds. The discussion is of approval to accept the low bid 19-026 attached to our backup from Joe Baker Construction for Munson Volunteer Fire Department Substation in the amount of $200,800 to include the alternates number 1 and number 3. And item number 2 is to authorize the OMB to research loan options for Munson Volunteer Fire Department for remainder of balance of lost funds, which is $120,800 applied towards the purchase. I'll get it out here in a second. Any comments or questions about that? Seeing none, I'll move that to the consent agenda on Thursday without objection.
So moved.
And item 2 is discussion of approval of radio maintenance agreement renewal with CES Incorporated, doing business as Team 1 Communications through fiscal year 2019 in the amount of $9,210 to authorize the chairman to sign all related documents. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll move that to Thursday without objection.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That completes this report.
Thank you. All right, next we'll go to Commissioner Lyncher with the Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 1 is discussion of approval of Exhibit A of the Florida Department of Transportation Traffic Signal Maintenance and Compensation Agreement. This is an annual renewal that we do. Any questions or comments? If not, I'll move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Item 2 is discussion of approval for the installation of a 3-way stop at the intersection of Esplanade Street and Barrancas Street. Any questions or comment on this? If not, I'll move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Item 3 is a discussion of request for Raider Lane and Cecilia Court to be designated as a no parking during school events area. This was a citizen initiative process, and Public Works has no objection to designating this as such. Any questions, comments? If not, I'll move this to the consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
And likewise, item number 4 is discussion of a request from Mr. James Ham for no parking zone along High School Road adjacent to his home at 2427 Pleasant Point Circle. Any questions, comments on this? Any objection from Public Works? I'm getting the negative there, so I will move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Lyncher. Next, we'll go to Commissioner Peach to bring us home on the Budget and Financial Management Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll read as quick as I can. Item number 1 is Woodlawn Beach Pier. Discussion of approval of bid for the Woodlawn Beach Pier project at Dale's Marine Construction as the lowest price bidder meeting specifications. Any discussion? Recommend move this Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Item number 2 is indoor LED lighting upgrade. Discussion of approval of bid for the indoor LED lighting upgrade to Gulf Coast LED lighting as the lowest price bidder meeting specifications. Any discussion? I recommend moving this to Thursday's consent agenda.
So moved.
Item number 3 is a budget amendment, 129 for Santa Rosa Shores MSBU. Discussion of the amendment in the amount of $19,662 to reconcile Santa Rosa Shores debt service after final payment of the current loan agreement. Any discussion? I recommend move this to Thursday's consent agenda.
So moved.
Item number 4, budget amendment 2019130, Savannah Plantation MSBU. Discussion of the budget amendment in the amount of $34,520 to pay the Pensacola Concrete invoice for repairing concrete curb in Savannah Plantation MSBU area. If there's no discussion, I recommend moving this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Item 5, budget amendment 2019131, Spencer Field traffic improvements. Discussion of the amendment in the amount of $250,000 to transfer funds from the District 1 lost paving, $125,000, and District 3 lost paving, $125,000, and from the road and bridge reserves, $430,000 for the Spencer Field traffic improvements as approved at our January 10, 2019 meeting. Any discussion? We recommend we move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Item 6 is budget amendment 2019132, special election. Discussion of the budget amendment 2019132 in the amount of $225,000 to carry forward funds for the special election August 27, 2019 for the 1-cent sales tax for infrastructure. Any discussion? If not, I recommend move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
Item number 7 is budget amendment 2019133, next site agreement. Discussion of the amendment in the amount of $39,000 to fund an agreement with Next Site to provide research, marketing, and consulting services for the retail industry from the electric franchise fee reserves for the total amount of $117,000 to be paid out each year for 3 years at $39,000 as approved at the March 15, 2018 meeting. This is the second installment. There's no discussion. I recommend we move this to Thursday's consent agenda without objection.
So moved.
And last item.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Jane. I'm sorry, I read too fast.
There's a typo on here. It says 2019-134, and I'll have that corrected.
Oh.
It's correct in the headline, but in the
Okay, so it's
description, it's
133.
incorrect. I'll have that corrected for Thursday.
Okay, great catch.
Thank you, Jane.
Last item is number 8, the check register. I will review and have the check register for your approval before Thursday's meeting, Mr. Chairman. Recommend move that to Thursday's consent agenda.
So moved. Thank you so much, Commissioner Peach. And before we adjourn the meeting, I probably saw an email. We do have 2 new employees starting today. I believe Mark's going to introduce those to the board on Thursday. And Thursday, we will definitely be looking forward to Commissioner Lynchard's sport update with the conclusion of the basketball tournament. So, all right. Thank you so much, gentlemen, staff, and members that joined us today. Meeting's adjourned.